Your expression isn't very good. Kim was silent for a moment, then replied, I'm just feeling pressured about being in a group with them. Louis encouraged him. I bet no one in that class is as strong as you, Yuma, so be confident. Kim gave a weak smile and thanked him. Kim sighed. He thought to himself, all right, Louis will be participating with me. It would be irresponsible to leave her behind. Come to think of it, aren't they upper-class members? That's good. I need to think positively. Kim turned around. Louis, what time is our group meeting? Louis replied, earlier Blondie said, we'll meet at the cafe at 6 o'clock. Hearing this strange nickname, Kim was a bit speechless. He must have decided to call the guy with piercings Blondie. Kim asked Chloe, so, should we head over now? Louis nodded in agreement. Inside the cafe, drinks were placed on the table. Louis, holding an avocado smoothie, let out a refreshing sigh. This is so good. Kim silently lifted his coffee cup, glancing at close. That green thing cost 5,001. It's a bit. Kim was shocked by the bitterness. It's just a small sip, Kim, he stammered. He gritted his teeth and swallowed the bitter coffee. Gotta protect my adult pride. He looked down at the coffee cup on the table. The only drink that cost 1,001 was espresso, so I ordered it. But it's so bitter, since it's a cafe outside of school. We can't use our student IDs. Kim's phone on the table vibrated. He picked it up to see a message from Rachel. I don't see you anywhere, Yamaha. It read. Kim replied, it's been over 5 minutes. Hurry up and get here. Rachel quickly replied, oh sorry, I was waiting for the others. Kim simply texted her the location, North Conference Room. Rachel quickly texted back, oh there it is. Okay. The conference room door opened and Rachel entered with 2 others. Yuma and, sorry I'm late, she stammered. Rachel asked, have you been waiting long? Kim didn't answer. Leon and Kim's eyes met. Kim noticed the orange-haired guy trailing behind. Speed Webson was looking around the room. Kim thought sarcastically, he looks so out of place. Leon walked up to Kim and extended his hand. Hello. Kim shook his hand. Hi. Leon smiled and said, your subspace maneuver in the match was impressive. It's good to have Yuma in Kim's squad. Yuma observed Leon. His elegance was evident in his speech. This is the main character I was talking about. He lifted a cup of coffee from the tray. Leon spoke first, so shouldn't he introduce himself first? Rachel loudly agreed. Leon placed his hands on the table and spoke seriously. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Leon Van Ving, and I'll be the leader of this group, a member of the Soul class. Although I'm the leader, I still have many shortcomings. I hope you all will help me. Kim Sue said, look at Leon's face. Life is so unfair. Rachel giggled and spoke up. Everyone knows me, so no introduction is needed. She nudged Speed Webson, who was sitting next to her. Next up, Speed Webson, a member of the Roan class. Speed Webson, I love heroes the most. He even has a huge hero tattoo on his neck. Kim was speechless. He's done already? No explanation of his name or anything. Is he the strong, silent type? My preconceived notions about him were shattered when he said he liked heroes. Kim thought he seemed like someone who thought being quiet made him interesting. Louis seriously said, hello everyone.
I'm Louis Auditor.
Yuma Vettel, a classmate of Rang, burst out laughing, teasing, you. Louis immediately felt angry. She took a deep breath and held it in. I was introduced to the group, so you all could help me. Leon smiled, and Vatcher nodded. Oh, I see. Speed Wapin also nodded. Standard introduction. Kim said coldly, I'm in the same class as Chloe. My name is Kim. Leon turned to look for something in his bag. Kim felt a little embarrassed. He thought it was awkward. Leon took out his laptop and typed on it. Let's begin. The laptop immediately projected a holographic image. What appeared was a map of Scupuli Island. Leon's voice was monotonous. This afternoon, the instructor handed out guide materials to the team leader. This is a map of Skull Island. This is where we'll be taking the exam. He explained the rules to them. First, on the day of the exam, we'll be transported to this island through a subspace. However, only the gate is a subspace. The island itself will be in real space. Once everyone arrives at the island gate, the subspace will disappear. You could be injured by the monsters. Leon cautioned everyone, so keep this in mind. He made a few more adjustments on the device. The screen displayed 3 warning zones. Our group will be tested on the eastern beach. Including ours, there will be 3 groups. All 3 groups will be hunting mermaid in this area. The focus of this test is... Leon paused for a moment, then continued. Whichever group can defeat the most mermaids. Both Kim and Close are looking up, focused on the map overhead. Then the screen shuts off and Leon stops there. He turns to the others and asks if anyone has any questions. Spit Waybon raises his hand. This Scupely Island also has merts. What if there's a risk? Leon replies, you can rest assured, because the teachers have completed the preliminary inspection.
Spit Waybon no.
I understand. A moment later, Lewis hesitantly speaks up. What if there's a surprise attack in the morning? Leon explains. The purpose of this exam is to conquer beasts, so any student who acts abnormally will be eliminated immediately. Is that answer satisfactory? Doi nods to Leon. Kim turns to look at her. I wonder if anyone comes from an assassin family. After the meeting, Leon summarizes, all right, then today's meeting is adjourned. So, let's prepare well for the exam. Tomorrow we'll discuss everyone's positions. The rest of you surprised it's over? Let's go eat. Stop it. You're stretching out my pants. Leon closed his laptop. Kim looked at him. He and I were sitting in the corner, so it's just the 2 of us left. I need to get out of here quickly. Feeling awkward, Kim quickly stood up. Just then, Leon called out, hey you! Kim turned around in confusion. Leon asked, Yuma, where are you from? He looked at Kim seriously. Kim stared back at Leon equally serious. Kim hesitated slightly. So, it seems like I received a similar question before. A fundamentally different question from back then. He's asking where I'm from. Leon's deep blue eyes were piercing.
Kim Fronet.
I can't understand the meaning behind that look. Is it simply a question about geography? Do you remember? If that's the case, then that's a question you could ask during the self-introductions. There was a good reason for all the members to ask that before. After going outside, Kim thought, could that be it? But Leon interrupted his train of thought. Sorry for suddenly saying something nonsensical. Leon said in a low voice, Doma, you're probably the same as me. Kim wondered, the same? How? He thought carefully. Even if the world's language in this game world is Korean, there's no distinction between countries. Anyone could say they're Korean. Leon chuckled. Just pretend you didn't hear what I just said. He stood up, brushed past Kim, and left. I'll go ahead. Kim reached out and grabbed Leon's shoulder, calling out to him. Wait, he said. Where are you from? Kim immediately regretted his words, cursing internally. Damn it, I blurted that out without thinking. If I leave it like this, I won't be able to sleep. It'll bother me too much. Leon turned around, removing Kim's hand from his shoulder. I'm German. Leon then opened the meeting room door and left. Kim stood there dumbfounded. So, this guy, the spoon in Kim's hand clattered to the table. He frowned in thought. Could this be a coincidence? Kim recalled that moment from earlier this morning. Could it be that he is also someone from another world? I only thought about it happening to me. Kim leaned back in his chair. There's no rule that says getting transported into a game only applies to one person, especially me. Because he's the main character, so it's more likely him than a side character like me. Jean looked at the knife on the table. Seemed like his senses were becoming strangely sharp when protected by the sword god. Somewhere, Jean drew his sword, the sword god's blessing. Jean closed his eyes, focusing. Suddenly, a system message appeared in his mind. Leon is the existence of this place. Jin's eyes shot open in surprise. Leon is the existence of this place? He quickly thought, just as he suspected. I'm seeing it again, just like that time. If I focus on using the sword god's blessing, the voice will appear vaguely. Jean rubbed his head. When I try to think deeper, a splitting headache stops me. The blessing doesn't hurt. He exhaled. Anyway, the Leon I saw today is exactly like the Leon I played in the game. No matter how many actors you hired, it wouldn't be possible to achieve that. Did he really just ask about my nationality? Kim pursed his lips into a thin line. But then he remembered Leon's words. Maybe you're just like me, that sentence. Kim took out his phone and went online, searching for information. At least I should check the wiki, because I'm not really interested in male characters. The wiki page displayed Leon Van Ven Hat. No corresponding documents found. Kim thought to himself, there's no information about Leon in this world. He leaned back, slightly relieved. Okay, this will be the only time I have anything to do with Leon. If something like this happens again, I should at least ask the media person for help. Kim recalled what the media person had said to him. Haven't you been avoiding me lately? Just yesterday we were planning to run away together, and now, Jean nodded. Don't overthink it. It's strange. Even though I didn't want things to turn out this way, I'm still calm. Is this the effect of the blessing? Jean opened his system status window. The blessing was developing smoothly. On the system window, it read, body level, 57, sword restriction loosened, mental level 3, sense of oppression by words and actions. Weapon level is a condition that has not been met. Synchronization rate, 2.5% increased to 6.8%. Jean thought mental and armament are the same, but body has increased slightly after the physical training. He thought about the weapon he could receive as a reward. If I get the Muramesa, I'll definitely climb it. Jean pondered the information on the system window. The words condition not met lingered in his mind. Synchronization rate, 0.5 increased to 6.8%. When the assimilation rate reaches 7%, the condition will be met. Kim wondered what this assimilation rate actually was. It just increased a lot. Maybe the condition for the ban will be met soon too. Thinking back to what happened recently, what I've been doing lately, just playing with my friends, could that be related? Kim tapped a few times on the information board. It's so frustrating because I don't even know. I can't even ask anyone. The system displayed a new notification. Activation time adjusted to meet the minimum number of blessing occurrences.
Kim pauset.
The system sent another notification. Painless blessing. Activation time, 30 to 40 seconds. Cooldown, 12 hours. Kim muttered, 40 seconds? Really? He reached out and touched the divine sword on the table. The hard work had paid off. Jiam held the divine sword and laughed. What is this thing? This is too much fun. And so, time passed. The countdown to the exam, 5 days remaining. For days left, everyone gathered in the meeting room, laughing and chatting cheerfully. Supadu Webin angrily warned, stop messing around. 3 days remaining. Jiam and Roi trained together. She diligently practiced each movement. Like this, higher. The countdown continued. 2 days. Another day passed. Louis was annoyed seeing Giochio and Jiam close together. 1 day left. Finally, a single drop of water slowly fell to the ground. He was in a ready stance, poised to shoot off like a rocket. Jiam, with the divine sword in hand, swiftly sliced the water droplet in half. Jiam looked back at him, a satisfied smile on her face. Finally, the day arrived. The day of the midterm exam. Everyone gathered together. Kim also appeared wearing the same uniform. This is the dimensional gate. Just this alone changes the entire atmosphere of the arena. Suddenly, someone called out, Kim, over here. He turned his head to see Leon, Rachel, and the others. Speed, Weipin, and Louis were already in position, standing off to the side. Rachel, who takes on the main attacker role, said with a laugh, we set a clear time, and yet you're still late today. Leon, the team leader, said, hurry up and get over here. This time, Speed and Weipin are support. Louis will be the secondary attacker. She greeted Kim, Yuma, good morning. Kim, taking on the rear support role, replied, sorry, I'm a bit late. Kim stepped forward closer to everyone. He scratched his face. Their weapons. Vulture joked with him, Yuma, pay the penalty fee. Jean ignored her. He was focused on observing the weapons in their hands. Vulture's was a heaven-splitting halberd, S-rank. Leon hadn't yet achieved the greatsword illusion. And Speed Weapon. Jean noticed the flute hanging around Speed Weapon's neck. He was a little surprised. That vertical flute, is that a weapon? Speed Weapon, annoyed by his stare, snapped, what are you looking at? Vulture stepped toward Jean and whispered to him, no matter how you look at it. Among healing-type items, only that is S-rank. Jean, puzzled, asked, that thing? Vulture nodded, confirming, that's right. That vertical flute is an S-rank healing-type weapon. Incredibly rare. Even if you burned through 10 million won in the actual game. However, that's just its function. But its appearance. Jean leaned closer to Speed Weapon for a better look. Amazing. Speed Weapon recoiled in disgust. Ugh, seriously, get out of the way right now. An announcement echoes through the air, catching everyone's attention. Attention, from this moment forward, The first semester midterm exam for the class of 2034 will begin. The students on the platform all look up. The voice continues. Judging by your expressions, you all seem prepared. Lee Wonbian says with a smile. I'm sure you're all familiar with the rules, so I'll keep this brief. If you sense danger, don't hesitate to run. Don't forget, you're still students, not heroes. He emphasizes to the students, meaning don't risk your lives for points. Lee Wonbin reminds them, and if you're injured or wish to withdraw, please contact your assigned instructor. At any time, Leon speaks up, it's time, let's get ready. You're rambling. Everyone don't worry. Let's just do our best. The Kims nod in agreement. You seriously think it's starting now? Lewis stands silently beside Kim, who asks, Lewis, what's wrong? Lewis hesitates, then says, well, it's strange to feel this nervous now. But I remember you saying that Scupoli Island is where Mamet appear.
Kim reser.
The instructors said that. It's something they checked on the preliminary field trip. Don't worry, Glowy. She blushes and murmurs in agreement, but Glowy can't stop thinking. In my homeland, Sicily, there are often stories about seeing and harming mermaids. We're currently at a truce with the demonic race. It's actually very rare to see them, unless they're in a dungeon. But the fact that such rumors persist means the conditions for a dungeon break are unclear. Lee Wonbium declared loudly, then enter the gate on schedule. The gate is currently active. Kim ruffled Close's hair. Let's go, Lewis. Blushing slightly, she thought, that's right, I shouldn't worry. Because of the drama here, I trust him. Under Leon's leadership, Kim's group entered the gate and traveled to Scott Polly Island. Moments later, a faint voice echoed in the darkness. It was Glowy, Yuma's voice. He kept calling my name. Kim called out loudly, Glowy, are you all right? Glowy was stunned. Did I lose consciousness for a moment? No. Suddenly, Glowy's eyes flew open, her pupils contracting. She saw everyone in a state of panic. Can't reach the instructor. We're in a cave, so there's no signal. Lewis notices something. Someone just got hit. What happened? A face appears. Lewis saw Moore. The moment Moore appeared on Skypea, the sound of continuous vomiting echoes. Kim stares speechlessly at Leon and the others. Vivi and Speedjiru are overcome with nausea. Leon looks at Kim. Yuma, are you all right? I don't get seasick, Kim replies. Leon chuckles. I don't think this is seasickness. Suddenly, a large fish head with arms and legs jumps out. Question marks appear on Kim's face. Is this Death Wink? He watches the small fish run away. Kim thinks to himself, smaller than I expected. He raises his cleaver. Got me all worked up for nothing. What a waste of emotion. Whatever. I'm in the rear anyway. Just let the team carry me. Leon tells Kim to go to their assigned position. There will be mature Mers there. Mers that are worth points, not these small fry. I'll lead the way. Let's scout out Lewis's position first. The four of them travel through the forest. Leon warns, be careful, Kim. Kim remains silent. Suddenly, a red streak flashes past them. Leon says, I think they're here. From above, Lewis descends, leaping from tree to tree. Kim asks, did you climb all the way up here? Lewis nods. It's harder to be detected this way. Leon asks, so, what's the situation like over there? Lewis hesitates slightly. Well, about 500 meters ahead, there's a cave. They all move forward. Leon looks at the cave in front of him and asks Lewis, here? Lewis nods. Yes. Inside the cave there are roughly 10 pairs of eyes looking out. The Mamets are gathered around a blazing fire. I'd estimate there are about 50 to 60 of them. Kim silently contemplates. This needs careful consideration. He muses, if we could take them all out, we'd definitely top the midterm rankings. But as team leader, I have to think about everyone's safety. There's a cave, and if we get injured, we can't contact anyone outside. Should we risk it or find a safer route? Kim looks up at Leon. The decision rests with him. He recalls the team meeting. Leon playing chess assigned roles. Loey, when we get to the island, you scout ahead. Webin, you'll stay back and provide support and healing. Kim, chin in hand, looks at Speed Webin. It's still strange to him that he's a healer. Speed Webin glares at him. What? Isn't a hero's motto to help others without hesitation? Leon paused for a moment. While he looked up at her from behind, wary of any sudden movements. Kim secretly rejoiced. This is way too easy. Leon picked up a white chess piece. I'll be in the middle, commanding everyone. Don't rush in blindly. Of course, depending on the situation, I'll join the attack as well. Rachel, sitting beside him, leaned in and asked, "What about me?" Leon smiled at her. "Rachel, you?" Leon's eyes lit up with determination. Kim thought, "I've made up my mind." Just then, Leon spoke. Rachel instantly grabbed her weapon. Rachel raised her hand. With lightning speed, she launched her weapon forward. Her long spear drew a curve in the air, flying straight into the cave, accurately hitting the bonfire, located in the center of the Murloc gathering. The Momer were stunned, unsure of what just happened. Suddenly, they heard a sound behind them. Looking up, they saw a chain whip descending from above. She smiled and reached out, grasping her spear. With a single swing, the nearby Momer were slain. Their heads flew through the air. Leon's voice from the meeting echoed in her mind. "Rachel, I entrusted you with this mission with confidence back then. Destroy everything. Can you do it?" "Back in the present," Rachel replied. "Of course." Speed Webson raised his flute. He was casting a blessing. The Momer roared from behind. Rachel gave chase, slaying and counting 6, 7, 91. She didn't stop. Her Momer kill count kept rising. 158, 20, 22. Rachel unleashed a devastating attack. 24. She laughed. "Thanks for the buff, Webson." 25. Kim exclaimed. Lewis, from behind, immediately sprang into action. She drew her sword, Grace of the Cat Tribe. Lewis, in this moment, transformed into a different person. With a single swing, she cut down a swathe of enemies. A cold and calculating Lewis counted 8. Before Lewis could even regain her footing, 2 more Murmas lunged at her. With 2 more swift strikes, she sliced them into pieces. 10 down. Lewis and Jadal, on separate sides, engaged in a relentless slaughter. The count steadily climbed. 43, 45. Leon and Kim were stunned. Why wouldn't they stop? At this rate, Kim suddenly remembered something. It seemed Lewis and Jadal had made some sort of agreement. Could it be? Both of them relentlessly advanced, stepping over the corpses of the Murmas, and towards each other. As the two were about to collide, a gigantic mermaid descended. It opened its massive jaws, intending to swallow them whole. But Vatcher and Glowy simultaneously raised their weapons. The monstrous mermaid instantly disintegrated. Vatcher said to Glowy, "Well, kid, you're getting quicker." Lewis glared at her. "That one? I killed it." Vatcher scoffed and turned away. "How amusing." Both Lewis too. Blondie. Gene scratched his head. Thank goodness. When Gene came to his senses, he saw Leon swiftly slice a Mer down with his sword. Then, he turned back to Gene, asking, "Were you worried?" Gene replied, "Not really." Just then, Vatcher reported, "Report, 60 eliminated." Leon said to Gene, "As teammates, we should trust each other." Sheathing his sword, he continued, "All right, let's go." Gene nodded. "Yeah." He silently assessed Leon, decisive and with leadership qualities. A solid pillar for the group. This can't be an act. The people of this world, it seems to be real. Gene pondered. But it was just a question about my hometown. Why? He looked up, finally able to farm so much. But suddenly, a beam of light grazed past Kim, piercing through Leon's stomach in front of him. Leon's been hit. This sudden incident shocked the goat tribe. Loey and Speedwagon were both stunned. Kim sensed something behind him. He quickly turned around. Everyone frantically called out to Leon. And behind them was the shadow of a mermaid. The thing that attacked Leon was a Ma-Nan. Mume uttered, That's... Why is there a mermaid here?" Speedwagon was startled. "Didn't we scout the area beforehand? Am I dreaming?" Kim froze for a moment. Damn it. Everything was going so smoothly. Looking at this situation, run or fight? If we worry about Leon's injury and run away, the whole group will be wiped out. Then, Rachel, he turned towards her. Order Speedwebson to stand by and contact the teacher. Go report that there are more damn fish. Speedwebson stumbled, unable to run properly in his haste, unable to make contact. Kim chuckled nervously, almost losing contact with the outside. Panic is only natural. It seems I'm the only one who's still calm. Kim ordered Vatcher, "You hold back those fish at all costs." Then, she turned to Speedwebson and said, "Use all your healing pods on Leon." Next was Lewis, who was stunned. Kim called out to him. Lewis quickly snapped back to attention. "Why yes." Kim placed a hand on her shoulder. "Get out of here and find other students nearby, and bring them to safety." Then, call a teacher. Close hesitated. Yoma started to speak, but Kim interrupted. Taking Leon and everyone else at the same time is too difficult. Hurry, before those damn meteorites hit. Louis worried. Yuma, wait. A moment later, she quickly left. Rachel turned back, asking Kim, Yuma, what do we do now? Is there a way? What are you doing? Speedwagon saw Kim heading in a certain direction and yelled, Hey, you, are you crazy? Where are you going? Kim stood facing Muirms. He said to Rachel, Speedwagon, leave those small fry to me. Speedwagon shouted, What are you planning to do, huh? Kim closed his eyes and took a deep breath. I've never liked small fry, they're not satisfying. He drew his cleaver and said confidently, This is my specialty, big fish, always has been. The inherent power wielded by the demon tribe is similar to the blessings of humans. Kim realized that magic had taken down the protagonist in one blow. This is the difference between the power of humans and the demon tribe. He took a step forward. Even with the sword god's blessing, victory is far from guaranteed. Even in a game world, defeating a magic-wielding demon alone is impossible. He cursed under his breath. Unbelievable. The system was forcing him to face a boss. Cursing wouldn't change anything in this situation. Kim steeled his resolve. There's no turning back now. Louis wouldn't be back for another 10 minutes. The demon Mamet gave Kim a sinister smile. This was his only option. Kim gripped his twin daggers and charged forward. I have to fillet this fish in 40 seconds. As he retrieved the sashimi, a sense of calm washed over him. Kim smirked. By unleashing his spirit, his level would increase. His opponent would feel intimidated by his words and actions. Unleash the blessings of the sword god. Use suppression abilities to begin fine-tuning. He muttered, It's been ages since I've tasted sashimi. Jean called out, Blessing of the sword god, come forth. Meanwhile, on Jace's side, she was relentlessly slaying. The relentless onslaught of Mo Metz. Varcher used his spear to block a Mo Met's gaping maw. Then, with a surge of strength, he shoved all three towards the cliff behind them. She groaned. Over there, Vatcher just skewered 3 mummies in one shot. Get lost. Vatcher wiped his sweat. Speedweapon stood silently nearby, holding his flute. I'm trying to reap the blessings. He turned back to look at the injured Leon. But healing Leon drained me. His wounds were deep. But luckily, he's recovering well. He pondered for a moment. Speedweapon glanced back towards Kim. I know that, in the subspace. That Doma kid is ridiculously powerful. But, he saw Kim facing the demon, Momer. Speedweapon broke out in a cold sweat. He's clearly insane. Just looking at it sends chills down my spine. Should I stop him? Kim. The demon, Momer, grinned and raised his hand. He launched an attack. Kim quickly dodged. He thought that Mamet mainly used water magic. At a distance, he gripped the knife in his hand. I don't know magic, but in the end, it's just a flesh and blood monster. Flesh and blood. Jean leaped into the air. He lunged towards the Mamet. Just charge in. He raised his knife. He slashed down, but it quickly vanished. Looking back, the Mamet had changed direction. It was moving to attack speed. He watched the Mamet approach, frozen in place. The Mamet bared its sharp fangs. It opened its mouth wide and roared. Jean swiftly flew in, severing one of its fins. He landed firmly on the ground, looking at the Mamet, still intact. Jean cursed under his breath and charged again. Damn it, too shallow. Jean attacked again but still missed. He frowned in frustration. Damn it, she's like a mermaid. Predicting her movements is impossible. Jean gritted his teeth. She's targeting the wounded. I have to hurry. Speedweapon called out again. Hey Jean. Jean turned to look at him. His eyes fell on Leon, who was lying on the ground behind him. Are you all right? Jean asked. Speedweapon paused his flute playing for a moment. Yeah, I'm fine. Jean nodded and charged towards the monster Mamet again. I'll have to rely on you again, hero. Spitweapon stood silently, watching Jean, as he battled fiercely against the monster Mamet. He frowned. Hero, huh? That's pretty cool. Spitweapon recalled his own words. Justice and the courage to sacrifice for others. The power to turn despair into hope. He spoke to Jean. Although I got into the best hero training school in the world, but I haven't met anyone with that kind of ability. Kim felt incredibly dull at that moment. Is he looking for me to confess or something? Speedweapon didn't care. He excitedly continued, "This class is exactly what I was hoping for." He then turned to look at Jatol. "That's why I asked Jatol to join this group. I think we made the right choice." Speedweapon looked at Leon. "Leon, if it's him, I'm sure I'll find the image of a hero that I've always admired in him." Kim, after hearing that, agreed. "That's true." Speedweapon turned back around. He said to Kim, "But what now? Sorry, but I don't think you're a hero, even though you're very strong."
Kim chuckled softly.
"Probably wouldn't want to be anyway." Speedweapon laughed at him. "You think heroes are objects? You can't just give them away as you please." Back inside the cave, Speedwagon couldn't believe what was happening. Right in front of Kim, that kid. At that moment, from the body of the demon Mume, countless small fish were released. The ferocious baby fish lunged forward. The demon mermaid unleashed its full power. Kim flawlessly dodged the attacking fish. The fish quickly turned around and headed back towards Kim. He looked at them. "These slowpokes are—"
Kim frowned.
The demon mermaid shrieked again. A diagonal slash appeared on the cliff face. Kim flew out from the cliff. The demon Mume's baby fish also relentlessly followed him. The demon Mume didn't move much. It just stood there, waving its hands in control. Suddenly, it smiled and turned its head in a direction. A grotesque hand of the mama's demon reached out. Rachel cried out in terror, "Weapon!" Speedweapon, startled, looked up. He saw the mama's demon poised to attack. He was stunned. Could that mermaid have been aiming at us this whole time? He realized it was lunging towards them. Just as the mama's demon was about to reach Speedweapon, Kim appeared again, slashing at it. "You're being careless again," he yelled. Kim silently cursed himself. "Why did I do that?" Kim focused. After being attacked by Kim numerous times, the mama's demon flew into a rage. The severed hand, cut off by Kim, fell to the ground, but it quickly sprung back up and unleashed a blast towards the cliff face. The blast exploded the cliff face, creating a hole straight through. The mama's demon roared. Enraged, it commanded smaller fish to attack. The commotion attracted the attention of the other students outside. One student called out, "Assistant Kim, Miss Kim, over there." Assistant Kim turned her head to look towards the cave. The student asked, "What was that noise?" It sounded like a scream, and there was a flash of light just now. The two of them observed in silence for a moment. Then it suddenly started to rain. The student said, "It's raining." Assistant Kim turned back to the student and said, "Let's quickly get the injured out of here. I think a storm is coming." The student nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The student didn't notice the strange, knowing smile on Assistant Kim's face. She urged, "We must return to the academy immediately." A large hole had been punched through the top of the cave. The hole landed right next to where Leon was resting. The Mumes turned their heads and looked at each other. Suddenly, they recoiled and ran away. Beetle raised his spear and watched them flee. Where are they going? The Kims remained in their positions as rainwater poured through the hole.
Kim frowned.
Damn it. Couldn't inflict a fatal wound in 30 seconds. Must have been too focused on Leon. The demon Mumes is falling into her own trap. Can't be that easy. Can it? Suddenly, the cliff explodes again.
Kim simirket.
Knew it wouldn't be that easy. The demon Mumes emerges from the cliff face. Kim throws off his jacket. He calls out to Rachel, "I've taken care of the fodder. Weapon and Leon are yours." Rachel nods quickly in agreement. Spit Weapon, flute in mouth, eyes light up. Can't believe Kim's fighting a demon alone. Thought he was crazy a second ago. I think I'm witnessing a legendary moment. Kim rolls up his sleeves, smiling. Finally, I can focus. 10 seconds left. Lost time starts now. The demon Mumes bares her fangs at Kim. It swiftly lunged towards him. Kim had summoned it. He closed his eyes to focus, then snapped them open. Kim raised his dual blades. "Let's cut this down," he said. Meanwhile, Lewis departed, following Kim's order. She was accelerating relentlessly. "Run!" Lewis gasped, pushing herself harder. "Faster, faster!" Lewis sprinted headlong, refusing to stop. "Don't stop!" Lewis drew her sword slightly, then propelled herself forward. Sweat dripped down Lewis's face. Her body felt like it was about to explode. "I'm using every last bit of blessing just to run. I need to call for backup." She gritted her teeth, enduring the pain. "Roma, this hurts so much." Chloe recalled Kim's instructions. "Chloe, quickly call the teachers." She thought to herself, "Doma is stronger than anyone I've ever met." She remembered Kim's lazy demeanor. but he always seemed to find fighting a burden. Doma avoids fighting as much as possible, and only draws his blades. Lewis realized the gravity of the situation, because Kim only takes action when absolutely necessary. Lewis ran without stopping. I think that's the best decision too, to leave as Yuma requested. But damn it, I wish I were stronger. Suddenly, Chloe heard an explosion behind her. She turned around.
En explosion?
Lewis bit her lip, praying. Could it be? Juma, please, you have to live. Distracted, Lewis suddenly tripped. She stumbled forward. Lewis quickly regained her balance. She gritted her teeth and continued running. Don't collapse. Don't stop. Lewis's tears mixed with the rain. I have to find it. From deep within, Lewis wanted to scream. Someone help me. Please. Anyone. Why isn't anyone here? Suddenly, Chloe is startled by a figure in front of her. She can't quite make out what it is. It's blurry, her senses are weakening. But Lewis is worried, mistaking it for a Mu Master Mermies. Why is she so tense right now? Lewis swings her sword forward. She abruptly stops, sensing something's wrong. The person before her isn't Mermies, it's Aben. Chloe flies past Nobel. She sighs in relief. That was close.
Sorry.
Chloe collapses on the ground. Nobel silently looks at her. Nobel's teammate asks, what was that about? A purple-haired girl, tending to a mommet, turns around in surprise. Why did he suddenly charge in like that? The others surround the fallen Chloe, shouting, are you crazy? Get up. We can't let her get away with this. Just then, Nobel speaks up, stopping them. Wait, his face, it's familiar. Lewis, on the ground, murmurs, help me. Tears streamed down her face. Yuma Nobel stood silently in the rain. Back inside the cave, Speed Webson stared at Kim in astonishment. Today's full of surprises, he muttered. He looks like... He searched for the right word. A master chef filleting a fish, Speed finally said. He had the upper hand from the start, Speed Webson murmured, even when fighting those demonic creatures. Kim's attacks were always overwhelming. Speed Webson frowned. I'll never forget this. I have to burn this into my memory. He watched Kim utterly captivated. He's not just fast. His movements, they're precise, skillful. He closes the distance instantly. Kim twirled the knife in his hand. 2-3 swift slashes severed the creature's tail. Speedwagon was stunned, then knocked him down. The ferocious Mummins was sliced into pieces. It started with a simple cut, then ended with a clean slice. Even Speedwagon and Wire were horrified by the sight. Beetle frowned. Even Wire, a descendant of a powerful family, had never witnessed anything like this. Speedwagon turned to look at Wire. If this keeps up, I really want Mummins. As Speedwagon was pondering,
Wire suddenly shouted, Hey, Speedwagon.
She quickly lunged forward, pushing Speedwagon aside. Rachel scolded him. How dare you look away? Believe me, I'll kill you. The previous attack left a long gash in the ground. Speedwagon lost his focus. I almost forgot because it was so surreal. Space has shifted. The opponent is a magic-using demon. He looks back at Kim. From the very beginning, using a knife to cut magic didn't make any sense. Even if he could overpower it, what if it used magic? Kim silently observes the marks of the recent attack. He grips his cleaver tightly. He turns to look back as Mummersit groans. It raises its hand high. Nito swell. Rain pours down into the cave. A moment later, it vanishes without a trace. Mommet swings his hand towards Kim. A barrage of attacks heads towards him. Kim, wielding 2 knives, moves swiftly. He kicks off the cliff wall, successfully dodging the flurry of knife attacks. But the knives in his hands are grazed by the attack, slightly corroded. Kim furrowed his brow, swinging the knife backward. This unexpected blow successfully sliced Muma's body in half. His pupils contracted in disbelief. When it looked again, Kim had already closed in. Muma's roared. Another slash came hurtling towards him. Kim's eyes widened. What he had severed had somehow transformed into an ordinary fish. Mumez let out a sinister grin. It reached into its own body and pulled something out. Then, it shoved it into its mouth. A drastic transformation instantly took place. His mouth gaped open, unleashing a magical attack. Spit weapon, a voice yelled. Dodge, Doma. Kim's eyes widened. I have to dodge that. His pupils shrank. I have to dodge. The space around him shifted. Kim was standing in water. He looked around in bewilderment, then down at his feet. A red thread suddenly appeared in the water. Jean reached out to retrieve it. Suddenly, a noise echoed from behind. He turned to look. A red thread appeared out of nowhere, slicing across the horizon. Jean froze. He muttered, "The magic has been severed." The red thread reflected in Jin's eyes. A knife also appeared before him. Jean quickly grabbed it and swung his arm again. Looking down from above, the red thread seemed to cut across the cave and into Miamert's body, and the magic was cut off. A pool of bright red blood flowed out in front of Jin's blade. The demonic Miamert lay there, now motionless. He stood before it, looking at it with piercingly terrifying eyes. His eyes were filled with cold indifference, devoid of pity. With the last of its strength, the demonic Miamert let out a few weak cries. This surprised Speedwagon and Dojwoy. They raised their guard. Suddenly, a decisive slash cuts through the head of the demon mammoth. Severed from its body, it rolls away. In the pouring rain, it rolls off the edge and falls into the pit below. Right before Kim's eyes, Speed Weapon suddenly seems to realize something. Mammoth's head just fell into that huge pit. Everyone comes to the same conclusion. They've won. Looking at Kim's back, Speed Weapon can't hide his admiration for him. He defeated the demon, and he's only a freshman. He and Jadal wear expressions of utter disbelief. Suddenly, a spray of blood erupts before everyone's eyes.
Kim collapses instantly.
He clutches his wounded body, coughing up blood. Varcher rushes forward anxiously to assess the situation. He just yelled, "Roma!" Supite Wyben looked back, assessing the situation behind him, then breathed a sigh of relief. Leon is lucky. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from outside, making him jump. Supite Wyben turned back with a worried look on his face. Could it be that the escaped Momek are back? However, it wasn't an enemy, but one of their allies. He could finally let his guard down, and said, "You finally made it." Looking at the scene before him, Avon's eyes widened in surprise. The pink-haired girl behind him cried out in fear, "What is that?" Looking at the pile of bodies in front of them, they couldn't help but wonder, "Is that mums?" Countless questions arose. Why are the mums here, and why are they chopped into pieces? Then also pay attention to the chains and needles nearby. She sorrowfully cradled his wounded body in her arms. Tears streamed down her cheeks, mingling with the heavy rain. AB, seeing this, was visibly agitated. Who in the world could have done this? Next, she awkwardly just stood there, doing nothing, which immediately caught Leon's attention. She thought to herself helplessly, a team member is dying. And the leader, he seems to be feigning remorse. Avon felt a pang of unease in her heart. This is bad, she announced to everyone. I've contacted the academy. Instructors will arrive within the hour. AB seriously inquired about the earlier situation. What exactly happened? Spit Web1 thought for a moment, then answered the assistant instructor. Those bastards claimed they were here to scout the island. But why did mermies show up? Ben, wanting to get straight to the point, said, "Cut the crap. Alright, explain yourself." He asked irritably, "Are you ordering me around?" She retorted sharply, her annoyance clear. "You're so weird. I asked you to explain." Speedwagon just chuckled and began his tale. "You wouldn't believe me even if I told you. Let me tell you the whole story from beginning to end," he declared confidently. "This is my specialty after all. Explaining things, that is." Some time passed after hearing the entire story. Nobel spoke up, summarizing. She asked, a hint of skepticism in her voice, "You're saying that moment suddenly appeared, and the Yoma defeated themselves?" Speedwagon casually confirmed, "That's about right." Avon seemed doubtful. A first-year student single-handedly defeated the Yoma. That appeared out of nowhere? She started to recall something from the past. The stories my grandfather used to tell me when I was little is even more real than this story. You think this sounds unbelievable. But considering the current situation, it seems to be true. Even I can be sure of one thing. Because he has no reason to lie. The rain just keeps falling. You continue to analyze the story. Sounds a lot like this hero story. The ancestor of the Three Scars hero, Jacquin, and the descendant of his most elite disciple, Arnie Bellung. This background made me special. From the moment I was born, I realized something very important, the so-called bloodline. You look ahead with sharp eyes and think. However, I don't want to be swallowed by these two words, so I put in a lot of effort. That's how I developed my talent and reached this point. Then Nobel says weakly, "But, Kong Juma, I never thought the difference in strength would be so great, she thought to herself wearily. Terrified, anxious, astonished, every emotion is churning inside me. Then she sighed, perhaps because I'm only human. Back to reality. Nobel spoke up, asking for a favor from the person beside him. Hey, can you use your blessing to heal him? The pink-haired girl immediately agreed. A stream of blessings enveloped Jin's body. Rachel supported his body. Nobel watched, silently impressed. Although Gangzuma looked like he was on death's door, his body battered and bruised, but Gangzuma, someone my age, defeated a demon on his own. She felt a pang of jealousy, a sense of frustration. Then, Speed Weapon asked a question to confirm. You said you contacted the academy, right? Then immediately confirmed. Yeah. He quickly added. First, don't tell the assistant instructor the details of this. Intrigued, she asked why. Speedwagon immediately brought up the previous incident. Clearly, those assistant instructors were here on a preliminary scouting mission. Right, Nobel? He agreed. That's right. He began to analyze the events. But something's not right. It's strange. No matter how large Scuttle Island is, this cave wouldn't be hard to find. How did the demons even appear? This story doesn't quite add up. Nobel seemed to understand the underlying implications. Meanwhile, the injured Glowy was being treated. A voice spoke up. So, this is just my speculation. Leon, somewhat incredulous, asked Speedwagon, are you suggesting there could be a demon spy within the academy? Speedwagon was struck by the accuracy of the statement. Not wanting to believe it, he quickly explained, not necessarily, but we shouldn't rule out the possibility. Looking at the current situation, Avon began analyzing the area. It certainly wouldn't be difficult for the cadets to find. She continued her train of thought. Steve Webben had said, if it weren't for Gongoma, all the members of Leon's squad would have died at the hands of the demonic beasts. Looking at the unconscious person before her, she wondered, but why? Avon racked her brain. For the past 700 years, there have certainly been minor conflicts, but nothing that would warrant the demonic beast's involvement. Besides the academy students, there's a clause that states it would lead to war if. It was as if she just realized something. Could it be? It seemed Avon had figured it all out. Seeing this, Speed Webben quickly stopped her and spoke up. Hey, I know what you're thinking. You're going too far with this. He voiced his thoughts. The spy theory isn't bad, but it's too early to jump to conclusions just because of this. Leon immediately chimed in. That's why we need to discuss this together. Let's say there is a spy in the academy, and if they find out Choma defeated the Mainin alone, he'll definitely become a target. Speedwagon seemed hesitant. If we had to choose, that's probably the right call. But we can't just stay silent either. Looking at his comrades, he continued, think about what that bastard did to us. Suddenly, Nobel interrupted. Rachel, overhearing, immediately perked up with curiosity. Nobel suggested something no one had thought of. What if we asked my grandfather for his opinion? Everyone fell silent for a moment. Then, they loudly questioned Sir John's purpose. Returning to the city area, a gentle breeze wafted through the window frame. A beautiful sunset began to emerge in the sky. Kim, lying in a hospital bed, had just regained consciousness. He groggily wondered, a hospital? Then he suddenly raised his hand and looked at it. Kim followed his gaze, wearily saying, I'm alive. Looking at his hand, he suddenly remembered what had happened. Mume's ferocious attack before he died. Unavoidable. But Kim could confirm he saw it clearly. He pictured the event. Like slicing through sashimi. The magic shattered like a water bubble. It was definitely water. Kim, based on his own experiences, could confirm it. He sat up in his hospital bed. A question surfaced in his mind. What was this feeling? After using the sword god's blessing, an indescribable feeling welled up inside him. Jianqi could guess one of the blessings. The words sword god's blessing appeared on the system. If you cut a line, it will automatically separate. Body level 7. Sword specification reduced. Mental level 3 to 4. A sense of threat appeared in his words and actions. Armament level 1. Insufficient requirements to unlock. Assimilation rate increased from 6.8% to 7.2%. Requirements met to unlock. And he read it all without saying a word. Then, Kim also realized what was happening and said, mental level increased to level 4. This must be the reason. I didn't feel fear when facing the Mainin. He continued, Finally, he reached out and touched the screen. Another line of text appeared. Assimilation rate, 7.2%. Mysterious line 1, read. When the assimilation rate reaches 15%, the next conditions will be unlocked. Suddenly, Media Boyson rushed over and hugged him tightly. Her words tumbled out without pause. I was so worried something bad had happened. Those teaching assistants dared to say they went to investigate. This time, I'll teach them a lesson they won't forget. Kim trembled slightly and spoke. Headmistress, wait. She quickly released him and said, sorry, I'm just so happy. Right? From now on. Media Boyson rummaged through her bag. Where is it? Where did I put it? He watched curiously. Is that a subspace pocket? She then exclaimed joyfully, found it. Media Boyson cried out in delight. She pulled out a powerful sword. Here, take it. Then explain the Murakami midterm reward to him clearly. Kim's face clearly showed surprise. He carefully examined the sword in his hand. The friendly Media Boyson explained, a Japanese sword called Savu, because its blade is covered in bone. I hope you like it. I was going to give it to you earlier, but, the current situation. I'm sorry. Outside the hospital room door, a figure lingered. She paused thoughtfully, glancing in that direction. Suddenly, Media Boyson called out, hey old man, are you ashamed? Come in here. Zombie sheepishly stepped forward, caught in the act. He cleared his throat, trying to regain some composure in front of Kim. I told you not to call me that. She glared fiercely at Zombie, Bumanda, retorting, you're 70 years old, and I'm still a young woman. Kim didn't understand what had happened. A vague feeling stirred within him, wondering what this Daeyu's deal was. But he maintained his composure and inquired, what happened? Media Boyson answered gravely, I've heard everything from your group. Yuma, on behalf of Jacqueline Academy. Both of them bowed simultaneously. We sincerely apologize to you, Kim. We offer our deepest apologies. She was deeply remorseful, taking full responsibility. Everything that happened during the midterm exam was our academy's fault. Because of that, you and your group, everyone's lives were in danger. Hearing those words, he was stunned. She apologized to me again, Kim. Media Boyson swears on her honor. As the head of the academy, Jacqueline sincerely apologizes for the appearance of the Majin. Zombie, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. You saved the students. He remained silent, offering no reply. Surprise was evident on Kim's face as he listened to them speak. He averted his gaze. His hand, out of habit, scratched his face in embarrassment. I only did what I could. Media Boyson smiled gently, continuing to address Kim. What you did was incredible, but I think we should keep this a secret until the truth is revealed. Sounds ironic, doesn't it? For the head of the academy to say such a thing. He showed no reaction, only listening silently to her explanation. But I believe this issue truly stems from within the academy.
I'm sorry, Yume.
No matter how I try to make amends, it won't be enough. Kim, understandingly, replied, I understand. Media Boyson hinted, Yuma, honestly, can't you be a little less serious? She spoke her mind frankly, just like an old man. He let out a few awkward chuckles. After checking on Kim, Media Boyson and Zombie left together. The atmosphere between them was incredibly somber. She was walking when she suddenly stopped. He subconsciously stopped as well. Media Boyson looked out the window and spoke casually. John Doe, do you remember? Zombie looked at her, confused. Media Boyson reminisced about their past, slowly recounting, the first day we met after arriving here, you were lying on a bench. When I told you to move, you recklessly drew your sword. They both gazed out at the panoramic view of Juin Academy. Under the setting sun, she softly asked, what was it you said? Don't order me around. John mumbled a dismissive reply, I don't recall. Media Boyson smirked, glancing at him. She sighed nostalgically, it feels like just yesterday, but it's already been 65 years. We've lived for far too long. Zombie didn't reply, remaining silent, quietly listening to Media Boyson's mockery. But isn't it funny? We haven't even completed a tenth of the academy's history. When we entered this school, it had already been established for ages. Such a long history. He pondered her words in deep thought. Despite everything that's happened, this academy has trained students for 700 years. Now it's my turn to protect it. Suddenly, a terrifying aura enveloped Media Poison. She snarled furiously, but Media Poison's power erupted, shattering the glass window in front of her. Her power erupted too quickly, and too powerfully, leaving Calm stunned. His eyes widened in surprise. Media Poison grimaced, filled with regret, thinking back to before the midterm exam. The scene of her sitting solemnly before the instructors, listening to the announcement. I have received a report from the instructors that they have completed the preliminary inspection trip. In Media Poison's mind, only the terrifying image of that humanoid monster remained. Although rare, Skull Island has had Mumurm sightings before, so I was very cautious. However, after she calmed down, Zombie continued to gaze solemnly at Media Poison. Then, he gently placed a hand on her shoulder, comforting Media. Media Poison offered a small, reassuring smile to Zombie. Sorry. I got a little carried away. Seeing that smile, he frowned thoughtfully. Media, but she suddenly seemed incredibly amused and exclaimed, "Isn't our ghost absolutely amazing? Defeating Mumez all alone?" Zombie grumbled inwardly, "This old woman." Media Poison stood amidst the shattered glass, his body writhing in delight. He spoke up, seeking the older man's opinion. "John Doe, what do you think?" The man remained silent, not answering immediately. Inwardly, he had already formulated his response. Natural talent. I've witnessed many dazzling names, hailed as the prodigies of their time. But they only shine briefly, then fade away like shooting stars in the sky. Zombie recalled the true circumstances of those children, once hailed as the prodigies of their time. In a family of heroes, filled with fame and power, the child born is always called a genius. Nobel's bright face appeared in his mind, along with the train of thought, even though sometimes they don't possess a single ounce of talent. While Media Potion is saying that Zombie is still lost in his own thoughts. I also forbid that word with my niece, Nobel. A hazy talent. If there's a genius, it's definitely that boy. I wonder if he gains enough experience, just how far could he go? His icy, emotionless face reminded Zombie of himself silently pondering his own thoughts. Could Gangzuma be my lifelong dream? No, not that field. Zombie decisively brushed past Media Boson. He solemnly declared, I am deeply indebted to Media Academy. Hearing Zombie's words, she was incredibly pleased. Smiling, the entire Ja Queen Academy was bathed in the gentle dawn light. Media Person's cheerful voice rang out. All right then, let's clean this place up together. He wasn't too happy to refuse. I don't remember, she asked, puzzled. What's wrong with this old man? The zombie kept repeating his previous answer. I don't remember. Before the tide of classmates entered the classroom, Kim sat alone, lost in thought. The fact that I defeated Mermez on Scott Island was kept secret, very carefully, just like the academy director said. He didn't interact with anyone, just remained silent, lost in his own thoughts. I feel kind of bad saying this to myself, but my classmates can laugh and have fun like this because I stopped Mermez. Kim recalled the scene when he was in the blacksmith shop. After being discharged from the hospital, the first thing I did was visit the blacksmith shop in the school to reforge and enhance Samni. He was extremely polite when talking to Gullin. Kim asked for permission to enter. Jean carefully examined the Murakami blade. Actually, its technical specs aren't compatible with the sword god's blessing. To me, it's no different than a piece of scrap metal. It needs to be enhanced. Scene start. He politely presented the sword with both hands to the old man and requested an enhancement. Goland didn't hesitate to respond. He was Goland, the blacksmith with a fiery passion. Goland winked cheerfully at Jean, adding, I won't charge you since next week is the school's 700th anniversary. Jean was overjoyed. What luck, he thought. Jean simply replied, thank you. He thought, I hope this enhancement is a huge success. Suddenly, someone shouted, Yo, Yama! Jean turned around in surprise, looking to see who had called him. It was none other than Close. She struggled to carry something heavy as she walked down towards Jean. Louis asked him kindly, You're out of the hospital? Are you feeling better? Kim, seeing his condition, exclaimed in surprise. Louis, what happened to you? One of Louis's legs was bandaged due to a fracture. He brushed it off casually, saying, That's what happened, but Speed treated me, and the doctor said I can remove it in a week. Louis thumped his chest proudly, boasting, After all, I'm an Audi Toma. He openly expressed his feelings to Kim. "I'm so happy." Seeing that Louis was in good spirits, he felt relieved. "It's good that you're happy." Kim reconsidered his thoughts, more carefully this time. "Right. I'm not doing this alone. It's true that I killed the demon Mamet. But you also took advantage of the opportunity. She's here to gather more information. Something special is going on." Louis replied honestly. I heard there's conflict between the headmaster and the council of elders." He thought to himself, this is because everyone is true to their roles. Kim recalled her cold expression when they cornered and killed Mumyeongs on Scupuli Island, the rescue request from Glowy, along with Jetel's powerful attacks, when counterattacking and killing the enemy, Biotul, 1 against 100 according to. Those were the masterful skills of Speed Webbin's flute playing, helping everyone boost Speed Webbin's healing. But then, in his mind, Leon's cold silhouette appeared. What did Leon do? Commander Kim pondered, stroking his chin. Can the Demon King be defeated that way? Enter the demonic realm or face the music? Is that it? Suddenly, from outside the classroom, came a panicked and urgent voice. "Freeze! Nobody move!" Lee Wanbi's face contorted in a grimace. He urgently ordered everyone to be quiet and sit down. "Before we begin training, I have something to say." He stood before the podium, stammering out his request. "This is a bit sudden, but is there anyone in this class who wants to be a teaching assistant? Please contact me immediately." The students sitting below the podium, after hearing Lee Jianbin's words, began to whisper and murmur amongst themselves. A teaching assistant? Seriously? What a drag. The classroom suddenly fell silent. The students, who were just enthusiastically discussing, now stood speechless, jaws agape in astonishment. Zombie calmly entered the room from the doorway. Each of his steps was incredibly steady. As all the students watched in awe, Zombie quickly walked up to the podium. A trembling Lee Wonbium yielded his spot to him. He bowed deeply beside Zombie. He hadn't said a word since entering, just stood sternly on the podium, arms crossed. The students in the classroom, seeing Zombie enter, excitedly exclaimed, "Isn't that Master Zombie?" "It is. Awesome." He raised his cold gaze upwards. Kim, still astonished, wondered to himself, why is he in a small, dark room? Go Gundu was beaten and sprawled pathetically on the floor. Assistant Kim's cold hand gently lifted his chin. He stammered, pleading, "Please, I beg." But before he could finish his sentence, Assistant Kim swiftly swung her hand, slapping Kardai Gol across the face. He trembled, pleading, "I apologize, Assistant Kim," but she showed no mercy, her eyes burning with fury as she hissed, "Bloody Kardai!" Assistant Kim gathered a surge of power in her hand. Her eyes held nothing but ruthlessness. Assistant Kim said coldly, "Commander of the 5th Legion is furious." A small hand picked up an insect, a gesture of helplessness. Honestly, Assistant Kim brought it to her mouth with disdain. Looking at Kardai, "You have to do things right. Is your only talent annoying people?" He looked remorseful. "I won't let Kardai finish his sentence." She delivered a powerful blow, making him tremble in fear. Assistant Kim approached, threatening, "Try apologizing again. See if you even dare." He could only pathetically obey her, mumbling, "Yes, ma'am." She scoffed in annoyance, turning away without even glancing at him. Bringing that Leon boy back is proving difficult, isn't it? Even if he is a hero candidate, dealing with him shouldn't be this hard. Assistant Kim toyed with an insect in her hand. She continued, "Because of your mistake, that zombie caught our scent." Wondu cowered, covering his bloody mouth with his hand. He stammered, "I." Before he could finish, Assistant Kim kicked him squarely in the face. Her voice dripped with contempt. "Are those words fit for a human to speak?" Wondu seethed with resentment. He cupped his bloody face in his hands and cursed under his breath. "Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! How dare a teaching assistant? How dare?" Assistant Kim adjusted her shoe. She complained, "Ugh, my shoes are covered in blood. Disgusting." Ignoring Google's coughs, she continued, "But speaking of which, it's quite funny." Assistant Kim turned and walked away, still talking. "I didn't realize Mermez was exclusively for men. Well, looking at the newbies, is there anything they can't do?" A pathetic Google stammered about that. "I was beaten by a student." His words surprised Assistant Kim. "Wait, what? Are you talking about Leon? He shook his head. No, ma'am. Assistant Kim asked curiously. Then who? He hesitated, making her impatient. I hate hesitating, so could you get to the point? This year's top student, Kang Juma, that kid, he stammered. His words surprised Assistant Kim and intrigued her. When she heard the name, Yuma, that special student, she said, her hand tightening around a green pouch. Lines of purple energy appeared. So that's it. Her expression turned dangerous. Her eyes glowed purple. The energy in Assistant Kim's hand ignited the green pouch. She exclaimed, interesting, scene change, academy training grounds. Instructor Wonbin jogged, leading a group of students. He started chanting, 1, 2, 3, 4, but his voice was too quiet, so he yelled, too quiet, again. The students obediently repeated the chant louder. Their voices echoed across the training grounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Foy can only sit on the sidelines and cheer on her friends. Because she's injured, she can't participate with them. Meanwhile, Jim is distracted, looking over at Loey and thinking to herself, I'm so jealous. He's lagging behind the other students. Suddenly, Mr. Zombie's booming voice rings out. You're lagging behind. It startles him and he speeds up. He runs alongside him and asks, is your leg hurting after the last test, son? He replies loudly, no, sir. As he runs, he thinks to himself, what's going on here? Why is he running next to me? He remembers John Zik, Christvani, and Belung. He's the right-hand man of Barlogican, and the first-generation Sword Saint. He continues to think about Sword Saint Erin de Belung. She's the one who will inherit the title of Sword Saint from this man, considered the most powerful force in humanity.
Kim pondered.
Moreover, he was Leon's swordsmanship teacher. During the Second Demon War, he was the most important character in the storyline. He wondered miserably, but why? Why is he here? He ran behind John, silently praying, please go over there with Leon. Why is the main storyline increasingly deviating? Kim thought hard. Then, it seemed like Leon had never received the title of Saint Sword. This was a much debated issue, so this shouldn't be a problem, because Leon wouldn't inherit the Saint Sword anyway. Even so, it was still incredibly frustrating. As for his friends, seeing him and the old man running together, their eyes all lit up. He felt extremely uncomfortable. Just imagine you're running next to that poster. Treat it like a poster. I'm just running beside a poster. A zombie running next to you. You don't pay much attention to the other trainees, but just focus on talking to you. The foundation of a warrior is physical strength and endurance. No matter how exceptional your talent, if your body can't handle it, you lose. This is the foundation for future development. He continues running and says, don't be lazy, just follow my instructions. Kim hurriedly replies, yes, sir. However, his voice is quite weak and soft, so he's criticized. Too weak, he says. Yes, I know, sir, you practically yell at him. After receiving your loud and clear answer, the zombie looks satisfied. Good. Before he can finish, he speeds up, calling out loudly, keep up, follow me. He was bored and tired, running slower than the others. As he ran, he thought, Kim's face was now tired and drenched in sweat. Is he really that old? After the run ended, the whole class was allowed by Damdi to train with weapons. He said from now on, unless it's field training, all personal weapons are prohibited. He said, then dumped a bag of weapons on the ground. There were many kinds of weapons piled on top of each other, from swords and axes to even a cannon. The students were curious and confused by his actions. Zombie continued, instead, try using the weapons in front of you. This surprised the students. One of the students regretted, my equipment is a family heirloom. He stood to the side, surprised, thinking to himself, there's even a sashimi. A student raises their hand. I have a question, they address the instructor. Mr. Zombie, I have a question. The instructor nods, granting permission. Go ahead. After receiving Zombie's consent, the student continues. In the long run, wouldn't it be better to use inherited weapons? I'm curious why they're forbidden. The student's question piques Zombie's interest. He decides to answer. Good question, Zombie responds calmly. Fundamentals are crucial. His words resonate. The more you rely on advanced family weapons, the lazier you become. You mistake the weapon's power for your own. The student retorts. But then, Shouldn't we learn to use them and compensate for their shortcomings? Sir, that statement caused a stir among the class. Some whispered, is he just being loud to get attention? However, he didn't seem to notice. He just continued talking about how good the weapons were. But if the user's ability isn't enough, then it's just like casting pearls before swine. With that, Zombie paused, his face turning serious. His gaze hardened. A true master never blames his equipment, right? He stated sharply. His words made the boy contemplate. Then he nodded in agreement. That's right, 100% correct. John Doe slammed his cane hard onto the ground. Once you master the fundamentals, you will naturally be able to use any weapon. Therefore, students who have a strong grasp of the basics often have high final exam scores and rankings. The atmosphere in the training ground suddenly became chaotic. Really, sir? The students scrambled for weapons. Out of my way. Me first. He could only stand aside and marvel at the melee. Kim thought to himself, a person's legs are even stronger than a horse's. Who knew the guy always bullied by the media could be like this? Suddenly, his eyes hardened. A knife caught his attention. Kim had to take it, but inwardly, he anticipated every intention. It's going to happen anyway. Every move he made was noticed by the zombie. The fact that he was being watched so closely made him apprehensive. Might as well take it. His face darkened, his eyes scrutinizing. Sure enough, the man, after acquiring his own weapon, the trainees lined up to listen to him speak. Today, we will have sparring matches between trainees to learn how to use your weapons. This made them anxious. They were afraid of getting hurt. Isn't there a subspace here? How can we not get injured? The zombie continued. You have entered this academy to follow in the footsteps of past heroes and become true warriors. A warrior only matures through rigorous training, as dangerous as on the battlefield. His face hardened. However, if you swing your swords recklessly, your heads will roll. One bin, holding a hammer nearby, looked worried. The students were apprehensive, but he remained calm. He hefted the sharp sword onto his shoulder and continued. So, before you pair up, I will demonstrate for your benefit. The trainees were excited to witness firsthand his swordsmanship display. Amazing. We get to see Master Zombie's swordsmanship. This is crazy. I finally get to see it live. One bin silenced the boisterous youngsters. Quiet. There's no room for chaos during class. However, One Beam grew even more afraid, as if he were in the worst crisis imaginable. He thought to himself, even if it's just a demonstration, the person in front of me is a zombie. Mother, I'm sorry. My life is about to end. His whole body trembled. Lee Onebeam, an instructor at the world's best academy. I feel like I'm in the worst crisis that I've ever faced in my entire career. My entire life, actually. He told the zombie, Sir, please be gentle. But before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. The zombie's sharp gaze fell upon the students. With a piercing glare, he boomed, Students! He paused for a moment, then continued, Kongjuma. All eyes turned towards the zombie, who continued, Come forward. His cold words made the boy flinch. He could only stare at him in stunned silence. The zombie held a sword in his hand. The blade flashed with a blinding light. With an imposing and majestic stance, he coldly called out for Cadet Kong Roma. The surrounding cadets began to murmur and gossip amongst themselves. Amazing! Fighting with scrap metal, another cadet commented. So, we get to witness firsthand a performance by Master Zombie? However, their awe quickly morphed into disdain. They said sarcastically in unison, No way, but why him? Master Zombie is going to test himself, while that kid just stands there worrying, frozen in place. GM thought to himself, I heard that, you guys. Seeing him standing motionless, he said, How are your bones, kid? GM immediately replied, Yes, sir. I'm fine now, sir. After receiving his confirmation, Zombie urged him on. So he draws his sword. Standing tall and proud, he commands, Pick up your sword. Kim's eyes are filled with determination, but also a hint of nervous tension. He thinks, it's just a sparring match. It shouldn't be this serious. Wait. Thanks to the rest, my body has almost fully recovered. Kim's face becomes pensive. But my opponent is Zombie Chris. He continues his thought. It goes without saying, nothing good ever happens when someone crosses blades with Zombie. At least one arm. Worst case scenario, my head goes flying. He reconsiders. But could this be the influence of the blessing? My innate desire to win is surging. He grits his teeth silently. I've gone too far, just thinking about the consequences. Finally, Kim speaks. I'm no match for you, zombie. Please sheath your sword. The moment the words left his mouth, the other students behind him erupted in laughter and ridicule. Of course, how could someone like you do it? Ignoring the mockery, he looked up, his gaze fixed on the man before him. John's face was filled with palpable anger and disdain. He said, You don't even have the pride of a swordsman. How long do you think you can survive hiding your strength? Talent means nothing if you won't use it. You're nothing but a coward. His words gave even Kim pause, forcing him to confront his own pride. That word, pride, sent him spiraling into memories of the past. First, he had always dreamed of becoming the greatest swordsman in the world. Second, he had no reason to put down his sword. He saw the worry in Gunbin's eyes, and the shock in Louis'. Was he really going to fight? They all watched Kim intently, hoping he would give up, but he paid them no mind, lost in his own thoughts. I know Master Zombie is deliberately provoking me. This atmosphere, he wants me to run. If I fall for his provocation, I'll definitely regret it forever. But he gripped his sword tightly, unwavering. Wonbium sensed trouble, and immediately ran to stop him. Wait, Cadet Gangzuma. However, he was stopped by Master Zombie's firm and powerful arm, blocking his path. He maintained his composure, looking at Kim. It seems you've made your decision, he thought, before everyone's astonished eyes. Kim confidently declared, Cadet Kong Roma, standing tall and proud, with a serious gaze he spoke. I have learned a valuable lesson, a blessing from the sword god. The two seemed to sink into a void, a space isolated from the outside world. The atmosphere surrounding them both grew increasingly tense. His calm expression radiated an unnerving confidence. It made the zombie remember his younger days. He pondered. Indeed, even at 70 he remembered that moment vividly. An image of Zombie in his youth appeared. His hands, young and inexperienced, gripped a heavy, sharp sword. He continued to contemplate, enlightened by the sword. He recalled his own serious face during sword training. Back then, his memories of the wandering one-armed knight were still fragmented. Under the knight's guidance, he trained relentlessly. Zombie realized the swordsmanship the knight displayed clearly belonged to that sacred ground. The young man he'd been watching since the placement test. Gangjong, if it were this young man, he'd surely have a clue that would lead him to that sacred place. The zombie swings his sword behind his back. Well then, are you ready? We'll find out soon enough. He starts swinging his sword towards the boy, with powerful and decisive force. The boy nimbly dodges his attack, appearing and disappearing behind him. The zombie anticipates his movements, and swings his sword again, hoping to land a hit this time. But Kim manages to evade the blow once more. Even Calmed is astonished by his speed. The boy quickly counters, with a decisive strike. The zombie observes with a scrutinizing gaze. Instead of dodging, he chose a direct attack. The trajectory of his sword is quite peculiar, like a swallow. Seizing the opportune moment, Jean continues his relentless assault. He expertly wields his blades, alternating between both hands. Even Zombie is impressed by his technique, a macabre artistry. His physical strength isn't what it used to be, but his movements are surprisingly fluid. Though my sword isn't as light. Back in the real world, the other student is completely baffled, utterly perplexed. He thinks to himself, I know he did well, fighting in the subspace, but to be given such preferential treatment, he's on another level. His thoughts are plagued by unanswered questions. Why? Why does Master Zombie care so much about this transfer student? Jealousy consumes him. He recognizes Zombie's expertise. The mere fact that he's being personally instructed, and wished they could be like that. The surrounding air fell completely silent. Only the sound of wind whispering across the training grounds could be heard. Every student held their breath in anticipation, but that one student felt confused as he watched the fight unfold. Zombie and Jean now stood facing each other, but neither of them made a move. He wondered why they were both just standing still. Only Master Gunbin understood what was happening. His face couldn't hide his worry, as he witnessed the scene before him. He thought to himself, they're not staying still for nothing. His eyes were filled with anxiety. I've never doubted Master Zombie's words, but Kong Yoma, could she really be this strong? Gunbin recalled the conversation he had with Zombie. Master Zombie, he had said, if the academy director learns the truth, then the nearby students could also be affected. However, Zombie coldly cut him off. Teacher Lee Wonbin, sir, you think I would actually fight that teenager? Not to worry, sir. He reassured the teacher, don't worry, if I'm right, Gangjun can step into that. Jianbin's face was etched with worry. That place, Zombie didn't leave him wondering for long. He answered the unspoken question. His face took on a calmer expression, but his eyes were incredibly sharp and determined. End of flashback. Back to the battle within the subspace. He highly regarded the boy's talent. He not only stepped in, but also took the hit. I couldn't help but be surprised. His face twitched. His eyes narrowed in scrutiny. Zombie assessed, the mindscape is a brutal battlefield. Only a clash of swords can reveal the truth. This young man hasn't even lasted a full minute. He continued to marvel at how far he had come. Kim suddenly turned serious, pointing his blade straight ahead. His zombified eyes held a commanding intensity. He watched intently as the boy prepared to strike. Incredible. He decided to unleash his true power. Very well then. This swordsmanship. The zombie adjusted his soul sword's blessing skill. An immense blue aura emanated from his blade. Witness this. It's so powerful. It's affecting the surroundings. The oblivious students had no idea what was happening. Teacher Wonbyong's face paled with fear. He went white as a sheet. That's his mind aura. Has it been shattered? The other students were also taken aback by the immense power radiating from the zombie. They were frozen in place. On the zombie's side, Kim is also fighting with all his might. Both are resolute, showing no signs of giving up. Gunben sees that both of them are still fighting, despite all the surrounding students possibly getting injured from their battle. This is a different story, Mr. Zombie. He has to intervene to stop them. Stopping them with a troubled heart, he must intervene. If this continues, there will be bloodshed. Below, the ground bore only deep footprints. World Pink shouted anxiously, Mr. Zombie! Suddenly, Ms. Media appeared out of nowhere, standing between the two combatants. Before either could unleash their ultimate move, she used her power, causing the surrounding earth to crack, in an attempt to restrain both him and Mr. Zombie. Her face was a mask of fury. Veins bulged on Media's beautiful face. Posan yelled at Ramid, What are you doing to the student, old man? In Media Posan's office. I apologize, Mr. Media said. His expression remained calm. Sitting across from Media, she was seething with rage, furious about the sparring match between him and Jim. What is it, Ms. Hang? His voice was Yongdae. Couldn't find the right words to explain. So he just stammered, It's nothing. This only fueled Media's rage. Like a volcano about to erupt. Veins bulged on her beautiful face. She seemed unable to contain her fury, and lunged forward. Mr. Trump. Media grabbed him by the collar. Media's voice was almost a scream. Have you lost your mind? If you're too old, just stay home. We worked hard to get you to this position, and now you're using your blessing to fight a student? Are you crazy? Is this what you wanted to see? Flashback to when Media stopped the fight between him and Zombie. She looked anxiously at the terrified students. Media turned to Basion. Zombie let out a curse. Damn it! He immediately explained, I didn't mean it that way. The zombie glanced behind him, watching him calmly, sheathing his knife. He sank into thought. I lost control too. I was trying to throw it away. Media's voice rang out. Hey old man, do you hear me? She angrily scolded him, but he calmly said her name, Media. Facing Media, the zombie said, I'm sorry. His words stunned her. Can't believe my ears. Back in the present. Media, annoyed, shifted her crossed legs. She thought to herself, in 55 years, I've never heard Zombie apologize. Once, let alone twice in one day? Media's face wrinkled in confusion. She said that? Why would you do that to a student? Don't tell me you're planning to use the blessing, the sword god's blessing, on that student? What would you have done if I wasn't here? Mr. John Doe simply sat calmly, sipping the coffee in his hand, and said, I have to use the blessing to gain the upper hand. His words left Media in disbelief. Can't gain the upper hand otherwise? She was stunned, unable to believe what she just heard. Media wondered, what did I just hear? Those words, from Six Frit's mouth? Of course, I'm well aware of Gang Jima's natural talent, but I know better than anyone the power of the Yun Je. Zombie, with a grave expression, informed her, that kid has reached the mental state. Media jumped to her feet in shock. What? It took you nearly 30 years to achieve that, but how could a 17-year-old kid do that? Does that even make sense? And he just sat there calmly, continuing to sip his coffee. Zombie gently placed his coffee cup down and continued, I don't know either. But he was sitting there with his hand on his chin, lost in thought. I have a feeling there's something similar going on. Media slumped in defeat, burying his face in his hands. He threw himself onto the sofa and stared at the ceiling. He silently cried out, oh God, oh my God. Media struggled to recall the moment. Roma, she rushed towards him in a panic. Are you okay? Before Media could finish her sentence, she felt a wave of killing intent radiating from him. It was dark and ominous, sending chills down her spine. Media froze, lost in thought. At that moment, the dignity of an educator was shattered. My feeling towards Roma at that moment was terror. Media covered her face with her hands. It's like the first time I met Batman, commander of the 6th Legion. Why do I feel this way about Roma? Is it because her name has Ma in it? She snapped out of her flashback. Media tentatively accepted Trump's words. So I don't think he's lying. Media hesitantly continued, so you lost. Her words struck a nerve with him. Media yelled angrily. What do you think? No matter how good Roma is, she's no match for me. Besides, I wasn't armed at the time. Seeing his flustered reaction, Media started to taunt him. What's with you? Why so jumpy? And don't you always say that a skilled person doesn't rely on weapons? She rested her chin on her hand, her leg crossed over the other. A monotonous voice, using that as an excuse? This isn't right, is it? She smirked, mocking him. The zombie's face contorted in even greater rage. Damn brat! Screams echoed from beyond the window. What's this? You wanna die? Kim Ryanga. The scene shifted to the fight between the zombie and Kim. Both unleashed ferocious attacks, neither giving an inch. Suddenly, a system notification chimed. Ding! It jolted him awake from the dream. Silence surrounded him. He thought to himself, even though it ended well enough, if the mediator hadn't intervened, who knows what would have happened? He marveled at the zombie's ferocity. That noble was pretty bloodthirsty too. He turned on his side, lost in thought. The image of the fight flashed again in Kim's mind. Is this like a vision or something? It's a strange feeling experiencing this mindscape. Meanwhile, Media is practicing swordsmanship within her own mental realm, honing her mastery and understanding of her weapon. A space activated by fulfilling various conditions. They say, only masters who have honed their weapons their entire lives can enter this space. So, even in the world of miraculous portation fewer than 10 masters can freely enter and exit. Thinking back to Leon training with the zombies, the protagonist, Leon, born with the inherent qualities of a warrior, still had to train for 3 years to enter the mindscape. I know this because I gave up at that point. But how do I possess this ability? Kim wondered silently. Even the buffed protagonist, Leon, needed 3 years. He suddenly noticed something strange that made him bolt upright in bed. A reminder to myself. The image of the knife flashed in Jin's mind. In my past life, I used knives for 25 years, almost the best in the country. He continued to analyze further. When the sword god's blessing is activated, my focus can surpass normal perception. Normally, images of everyone from both of his lives appeared in his contemplative mind. This life and the previous one were merging to create something extraordinary. He looked at the knife in his hand, gripping it tightly with all his determination. All right, based on past experience, avoiding it will only make the situation worse. I have to tackle what I can, one step at a time. Jean confidently stood up from the bed, knife in hand. He told himself, let's see, bringing out the knife again. If I can use telekinesis, then I can train, without relying on the sword god's blessing. He slowly closed his eyes and drew his blade completely from its sheath. He focused intently, trying to enter his own mindscape. The scenery around Jean gradually began to change. All the furniture in the room slowly vanished. The scene shifted from his bedroom to the academy rooftop. It seemed he had successfully entered his mindscape. However, the space within his mindscape suddenly cracked. A massive hand emerged from behind the shattered fragments. But Jean remained focused, standing still, remembering the moment of his sparring match with John Doe. The enormous hand inched closer behind him. It gently tapped his shoulder with its index finger. Jean seemed to be infused with a strange, powerful energy. It was incredibly potent and abundant. He was bewildered by the events that had just transpired. But then, the sashimi knife he held in his hand slowly began to dissipate. He silently watched his knife vanish. Unable to comprehend, he stammered, "This?" The scene shifts to another location. A voice booms. "This time, things have gone too far, Elder Bealiadi." Another voice chimes in. "Indeed, this is a blatant disregard for us." A hand slams down on the table. Everyone here agrees on this matter. 5 figures sit around a circular table. The old woman next to him speaks. "They are undoubtedly our enemies, for daring to bring shame upon us." Old One Joe yells, "Does that matter now? We need to deal with this troublemaker first. Let me say it again, that top student. We need to investigate Ganjiama." The old woman furrows her brows, displeasure etched on her face. She rests her chin on her hand and says, "That student is a prime candidate for the hero position. Isn't it Leon Van Bernhard?" Wonjo stood up, confidently asserting, "But that brat has only partially utilized his blessing." "And have you forgotten, sir?" he tried to convince the man in the white robe, the authority figure sitting opposite him. He threatened the gifted twins with a knife during class ranking. Furthermore, the media is suppressing information to protect him. Everything about that student is a question mark. An old man sitting beside him said, "Regardless, the fate of a hero cannot be avoided." Wonjo interjected, "Indeed, sir. We must eliminate these unforeseen threats." The old man continued, "It seems they're so determined this time that they've even brought a zombie into the academy." Wonjo agreed with the old man's words. "You're absolutely right, sir," he yelled. "After Chilsong Media took over the academy, our standing as elders has diminished greatly." Wonjo continued, "After Batman was defeated, the world began admiring Chilsong. Aren't we just elders left behind?" Images of both Madam Media and Mr. Zombie appeared. He grew more and more agitated. "Even though we were the ones who guided and maintained balance for those fools, even now, moreover, if heroes emerge, our position will become even more precarious." An old man spoke up. "We need a common enemy to maintain our power." The elder next to Galjo agreed. "Heroes threaten the Demon King, so they must be overthrown." Wando thought to himself, "I'm a respected elder of this academy, and yet that brat dared to threaten me with violence." The 5th Legion commander was furious. He pondered for a moment. "If I don't do something here..." An image of Assistant Instructor Kim flashed in his mind, her triumphant smirk evident, a look of cunning and malice. That smile sent shivers down his spine. Commander of the 5th Legion of the Demon Kingagos army. Fear gripped him as he blurted out, "I'd rather die." Finally, after hearing all the elders' opinions, the elder in the center, seated with an air of authority, spoke. "Very well, relay this order." Maintaining his commanding presence, he declared, "Summon Auditor." At that moment, a heavy hammer slammed onto the wooden floor. His face was a mask of barely contained fury. Glenn's startled cry rang out. He stammered, "Why you, boy, spare me." He collapsed on the ground with a loud thud, paralyzed by fear. Jean gripped a long knife in his hand, his knuckles white. He held it so tightly that his hand trembled at its very presence. Rain fell. Murakami cursed under his breath. The tension between the two was palpable. Helen sat on the floor, terrified, her eyes wide with fear as she watched Jean wield the long knife. He thought to himself, "This kid." The system's screen appeared. Muramasa was added to its inventory. The knife belonged to rank E. It was the blade known as Bone Eater. Through the secret techniques of a master blacksmith, it had been reborn as a carbon steel kitchen knife, small in size, but its power depended on the user. The system continued to provide its stats. Size, 35 centimeters. Power, rank C. Attack range, E rank. Durability, E rank. Potential, A rank. Jin's face was a mixture of disdain and disbelief as he listened to the system's announcement. He stared intently at Galen, while the old smith tried to explain. Even after nearly 35 years of smithing, this is the first time I've encountered such a case. To put it another way, the broken knife, it refused to be forged. Gulen continued, so I had to melt it down and reforge it. Luckily, I was able to retain its shape. If it were any other blacksmith, it would have ended up as scrap metal. He went on explaining, just one hammer strike, and it was done. Truly. Jean fell into deep thought, calculating. His expression showed a hint of worry. With 25 years of knife experience, I can tell it's exceptionally well made, and the size is perfect for the blessing. It's just a little lacking in firmness. Gulen tries to explain to him, but its potential is excellent. If reinforced, it will definitely be very useful. Consider it an apology. If you bring the enhancement materials, I'll waive the forging fee. Kim, burning with anger, immediately scolds Gulen. What if it breaks again? Causing the old man to stammer out an explanation. Even though it's only E rank. But if the potential is this katana can reach A rank. Even higher, and also, there are enhancement materials that never fail. He hesitantly says, but those materials are taken from A rank magical beasts or higher. Then how can I possibly get them? He stared intently at the knife before him, lost in thought. An A-rank monster is equivalent to an E-rank demon. Does that mean I have to kill something like that mermaid? Jean examined the sharply honed blade. It gleamed with a blinding light. He thought to himself, I don't want to risk my life just to enhance equipment. I could also get enhancement materials from lower-level monsters. He mused, this is too expensive. The system beside him immediately sent a notification. You'll be charged for the email even if you don't buy. He hesitated, then said, promise me. Hearing his words, the old man seemed to calm down, and immediately agreed. Of course, I promise on my honor as a blacksmith. If you tell Gulen about this, then give me back half of the remaining payment, 10 million, making even Gulen shout in surprise. He yelled angrily, I did as you asked, and even enhanced it for free.
Kim kalmli replied.
It's been downgraded from B rank, so half the market price is a fair deal. He was stunned. What? How can someone like you try to scam an adult? He raised the knife high. Its sharp edge reflected a blinding light. With a serious expression, he said, we need to test if it works. Anyway, luckily that made Gulen even more frightened. Why yes, how about 5 million? However, Kim firmly insisted on 10 million. Stunned, he continued to bid. 8 million. I can't go any lower. Kim just lightly touched the sharp blade. His voice trembling, he continued, a B-rank weapon, even just a fragment, its market value. It's hard to recoup the cost. With a cold expression, Luca demanded, refund my money. The demand caused Gulen to collapse onto the ground, resigned to Luca's overwhelming presence. All right, scene change. A system screen appeared. It informed Luca, Sword God's Grace will sever all. Physical level increased from 7 to 8. Sword range expanded. Mental level is 4. Increased authority in speech and action. Armament level decreased from 1 to 3. 1 level of pain inflicted upon activation of grace. Synchronization rate increased from 7.2% to 9.3%. 1 line of reach 15% synchronization to meet the next unlock condition. Grace activates only when wielding a sword, with a length under 36 plus 2 centimeters, and a width under 9 plus 0 centimeters. Luca sat on a bench in the academy courtyard. He ate while reading the system's notification. Lost in thought, he remained silent. After acquiring the new weapon, his armament level increased and new options became available. The biggest reason he hesitated to use the Sword God's Grace was the excruciating pain. He stared glumly at the stats it provided, but it actually decreased. Thinking about the future, he knew he had to upgrade this. Actually, after seeing this description, he had experimented. The pain had lessened from unbearable agony to just barely tolerable, but it was still incredibly uncomfortable. But if it was already like this at level 1, then after leveling it up, perhaps he could use the Sword God's Grace, without needing the pain immunity grace. It seemed the armament level increased when acquiring new weapons, or enhancing existing ones. The system's notification announced a level. My armament level has increased. He continued to ponder. The midterm exams have ended. From now on, my top priority is weapon enhancement. If I keep developing at this rate, Perhaps I'll understand the power I was bestowed here, and maybe even the identity of the one who threw me into this place. Yuma was deep in thought. He wasn't paying attention to his surroundings. Chloe approached, calling out his name, startling him and causing him to drop his food. He turned to look at Lewis. Curious, she asked him what he was doing while eating. Yuma immediately replied, "Oh, it's nothing. I just don't have much of an appetite." He noticed Chloe's feet and asked, "Your cast is off? Are you all better?" Chloe beamed, happy and excited. "Although I still have to use crutches. But I feel stronger than before." She jumped up. "Broken bones heal back stronger, you know?" He thought to himself, exasperated. Bones aren't muscles. He noticed something stuck to her lips. Being kind, he called out to her. "Wait." Gently, he removed it from her mouth. "Close up." Chloe was still puzzled, unsure what it was. Meanwhile, she was practically on cloud 9. From the thoughtful gesture, his face flushed crimson. Embarrassed, he tripped and fell on his backside. "Close up," she gasped. Seeing this, he quickly checked on her, offering a hand up. "Are you okay?" Chloe immediately replied, "Oh, I'm fine." Her eyes, curious, fell upon the knife resting on the chair. "What's that?" she exclaimed excitedly. Chloe picked up his weapon, examining it. "Is this Yuma's first weapon? It's so cool." He sat there, nervously fidgeting. Yeah. He was worried something might have happened to her. Jean reassured himself, "She'll be fine." The string binding his sharp blade came loose. A bright light flashed. Lewis held up Jin's knife admiringly. "It's beautiful, unexpectedly beautiful, even for an E-rank." His expression turned somber when he mentioned the E-rank. "E-rank?" She looked flustered. "Oh no, I didn't mean, compared to the lowest rank, it's very nice." "No, wait, that's not what I meant either." He didn't seem to mind. He just smiled, remembering the moment he threatened Mr. Gullin. "It's okay. Anyway, I got some money back from that blacksmith, and he'll upgrade it for free if I bring him the materials. With gradual enhancements, it'll become stronger." Lewis nodded in agreement. "That's right. Yuma used to be incredibly powerful with just a Daiso sashimi knife, and with a better weapon, you'd undoubtedly be even stronger." Hearing her encouraging words, Jean felt his spirits lift. Thanking Chloe, he fell into deep thought. "Actually, I don't need to be stronger. Ever since I defeated the mermaid, I've been able to cut down most mid-level monsters and above. The main reason I want to strengthen my weapon is to lessen the pain." Chloe, watching his silent contemplation, grew worried. He let out a slow sigh, making her feel even more uneasy. Chloe nearly jumped up. "Jean, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to criticize your weapon." Startled by her reaction, Jean also jumped. "No, that's not it." Chloe's eyes fell to the knife resting on the chair. Jean explained, "It's just that when I look at the Muramesa I was rewarded, I feel a bit discouraged." She replied with a long, drawn-out ah. Then, feeling a surge of regret, she spoke. "That blacksmith, he ruined Yuma's weapon." Her expression darkened. A menacing aura emanated from Chloe. "Those who wronged Yuma, they will all pay." Her eyes glowed crimson, filled with a murderous intent. Seeing her prolonged silence, he spoke up. Lewis's voice startled her, snapping her out of her murderous thoughts.
I'm sorry."
He remained silent, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Suddenly, Kim noticed something near the tree he was sitting by. He stared intently at the tree. He thought to himself, "It's right there, doesn't Lewis sense it?" Kim slowly approached the tree. Yuma rushed after him. "Kim, where are you going?" With a powerful kick, he struck the base of the tree. His voice was cold. "What are you doing here?" From high in the tree, Block plummeted to the ground. He landed squarely on his backside with a painful thud. Kim's face contorted in disdain. "This guy," she muttered to herself. He immediately assumed a defensive stance. Flustered, he stammered, I was just caught off guard." Lewis, witnessing the scene from the sidelines, gasped in shock. He could only manage a single word, "Brother." After a moment, he gripped the knife in his hand tightly and looked at her. Chloe's ears perked up, straining to listen. He shifted his gaze to Block, thinking to himself, "There's no scent of blood. He must be unarmed, and his back is turned." Seeing his opportunity, he spoke up. "Do you need something from me?" Block jumped, startled. He remained silent for a moment, leaving the boy confused. Kim stared intently at Block and said, "I thought I made myself perfectly clear." He spun around angrily. Veins bulging on his face, Block stammered, I didn't come here for that. Without hesitation, Nox replied, then why? Answer me. Telling Glowy is like talking to a brick wall anyway. Glowy's ears twitched, turning towards the speaking Glow. He continued, then it's best to tell both of you. Crush adjusted his face covering and said, and this concerns Kong Roma. Finishing his sentence, he turned to face them both and continued, the Academy's Council of Elders. They've ordered Kong Juma's execution. Suddenly, the Academy's Council of Elders appeared. GM contemplated, those old geezers want me dead? Lewis panicked. Did you come looking for Juma because of that, Block? Lewis's voice deepened. You've been away from home too long. You've grown careless. Enraged, she took a defensive stance, instantly drawing a paper knife. Glowy yelled, Doma, get back. Looks like I'm the one who has to handle this guy. Kim doesn't seem too concerned with Glowy. Meanwhile, she's just yelling nonstop. Swinging her sword wildly, hurry up, get back, quickly block the appraisal. Say no? You're still pretty sharp, Lewis. He crosses his arms and continues, turning to the boy with a menacing tone. Gangzuma, I don't care what you're doing, but the Elder Council is obsessed with you. He warns him. Not just me, but even within the auditor ranks we find it strange, and want to postpone the mission. The fact that they issued secret orders without going through the headmaster is also concerning. Moreover, assassinating a student is against our principles. Blog looks at him. But since this is a direct order from the Elder Council, it's hard to ignore. If the pressure continues to mount, the auditor will be forced to investigate you, Kangzuma. He closed his eyes silently. Then Nox's gaze softened, as he looked at his younger sister. Anyway, Chloe, you're a member of the auditor, so I'll let you know. She stared at her brother in shock. Kim Jiam remained alert, telling himself, although he came here under the pretense of going against family principles, his true intention was to worry about Lewis. He turned to leave. I said my piece. Call him back immediately. Nox. Confused, Nox turned back to look at him. Seeing that look, Yuma became flustered. What is it? It was like this with the girl last time too. He looked at him, said nothing, then turned back and told him, Lewis is happiest when he's by your side. Seeing the image of his sister before his eyes, Nox continued, even I, as her older brother, have never seen her like this. His words left Lewis speechless. Kim was also at a loss for words. But he wasn't finished. Block continued, don't hurt Lewis anymore. He looked at Kim, who was also stunned. Ha! A confused expression crossed Kim's face. What is he talking about? Isn't it me who's injured? Block scowled fiercely at him. Kim turned to see Close struggling to approach. Oh yeah, I know. Block was silent for a moment, then spoke. But I want to ask you something. He looked seriously at Kim and asked, how can a brat like you be so strong? Kim felt confused. Am I strong? He remembered the scene of the man with the sword slashing down and fell into deep thought. A powerful swordsman, not only always ready to face difficult situations, but also strong enough to survive every single minute. This isn't a level that can be measured by strength. I can't say it out loud, but I think Jim Nuok Matt Block is using Closey as an excuse to reveal family secrets to me, an outsider. Jim turns and calls out to Block, startling him. Jim says he's not passionate enough. Block, frustrated, asks, what do you mean by that? Jim speaks seriously. Even if you are an auditor, when you interact with society, there's a certain resonance. If you're confined to the academy, you'll quickly reach your limits. So, gain social experience. If you sweat and cry to learn, you'll definitely achieve something. Block asks, confused, how? Jim turns and walks away. He couldn't help but feel restless and anxious, silently encouraging himself, thinking, I'm not wrong. Be confident. Inside the classroom, the teacher wrote on the board with chalk, while lecturing, above all else, including discipline and prosperity. He turned around and continued, there are many gods in the heavens. However, the students listened attentively. Kim held a pen in one hand and rested his chin on the other, lost in thought. The Academy's Elder Council is targeting me. In his notebook, he drew a figure labeled Loey and a diagram. He circled a line of text and thought, 5 out of the 7 members of the Elder Council are disciples of Bulroyakin. If I remember correctly, this council holds immense influence, not just within the Academy, but throughout the entire world. Kim slowly recalled details from the game. However, their role is to obstruct the main character, to maintain the council's power and authority. So they're also known by players as the Five Evils. Jim sank into deep thought. He wondered to himself, but why was his existence such a thorn in their side? He picked up his pen and continued writing in his notebook. Jim listed 3 things he had deduced, then underlined the last line of the sentence. Kim thought wearily, writing it all out like this, it makes it clear. Even a nobody like me has a lot on their plate. Kim propped his chin on his hand, staring at the notebook with a look of exasperation. Normally, things are pretty chill, safe, uneventful. Really, at this level, I'm just trying to not stand out too much. But no matter what I do, Kim glanced up at the chalkboard covered in writing. He continued to ponder. It's completely absurd that the Elder Council would target me. His eyes narrowed, focusing on the underlined phrase from earlier. He muttered, Operation Skopali Leon. Suddenly, it clicked. He wasn't the target. It was Leon. Kim was just an obstacle, disrupting the council's plans. Kim recalled his previous conversation with Medea. He thought, no matter how quiet Medea tries to keep it, the fact remains I defeated Mumez. News like that, it can't be contained. It was bound to reach the highest echelons of the nobility. He thought to himself, why would they target Leon? A hero candidate, it means one of them. Kim recalled 2 figures, Elder Zahirasit and the zombie Ifrit. Or, could they be secretly colluding with the demon race? The image of Leon flashed in Kim's mind. Then he thought, besides, they're trying to kill him. A student, barely a teenager. No matter how corrupt. Even with the professor lecturing, I can't stop thinking. How can they prioritize their own gains over the benefit of humanity? Or the academy? I never thought it could be this rotten. I could go to the Elder Council and expose them. But Kim, sketching on a piece of paper, muttered to himself, it's not time yet, not until the opportune moment. His eyes widened. His face was filled with ferocity, secretly vowing to cut them in half. The professor, finishing his lecture, reminded them to take notes. Only then did Kim look up at the board. Having not paid attention, he understood nothing. His mind drifted, daydreaming of knights and steeds. He circled a word, then quickly scratched it out. He thought, just do it. To enhance armaments, he mused, requires a dungeon raid. First, gather like-minded individuals. Can't do this alone. If I tell Close she'll help. Someone resourceful would be ideal. Rachel's too crazy. At the board, the professor continued lecturing his students. The future generations of humankind. But was the future of humankind certain? Kim froze, eyes widening, and wrote down a name. Speedwagon, he thought. I should talk to him. The professor's voice boomed. It is called a god. After class, warm sunlight bathed the hallways. Kim was on his way to... In Whipper's class, someone was cracking their knuckles. Crack, crack. A gruff voice spoke. Hey, celebrity. A tall, muscular guy with blonde hair stood behind Kim. He bared his pearly white teeth in a ferocious sneer. This isn't a place for a weakling like you. Gifted student. This took Kim by surprise. He broke out in a sweat, sensing an awkward situation. He lamented internally. What the heck? This third-rate side character. Throughout my entire career, I've dealt with over 10,000 drunk customers, but these are just teenagers. Dealing with them is so tiring. Kim ignored him. He continued walking, not forgetting to throw a threat over his shoulder. Get out of my way, before I shave that square jaw of yours. The guy couldn't believe his ears. What did you say? He went ballistic, immediately raising his fist and yelling, you bastard. Kim calmly looked up at the incoming fist, thinking, too slow. But just then, a familiar figure rushed in, taking him by surprise. Wobin appeared out of nowhere, jumping up and delivering a powerful punch to the man's face. The students were startled by the commotion. A male student, drawn to the noise, asked, what's going on? A nearby female student chimed in, is that a fight? After taking Wobin's punch full on, the man lay unconscious on the floor, while Wobin cried out, oh my god, that hurt. Why are you like this? Kim, standing to the side, smirked to himself. I've seen many magic abilities, but this is the first time I've witnessed a healer's power. Wobin wondered aloud, did I hit him too hard? Then, he looked at Kim and said with a smile, are you here to visit me? Let's go outside and talk. Kim placed his can of soda on the windowsill and said, "So, we need to organize a party as soon as possible." "That's what I mean." Webin leaned comfortably against the windowsill, holding his soda can, and replied, "I'll help you find members. And the clear reward will be divided equally among the members. Do you have any monster materials saved up?" Kim crossed his arms, leaning against the windowsill, his gaze fixed outside, and said, "If I say party, no one will come except close. So, if someone from the dragon class like you helps, it'll be easier." Webin said, "A party needs at least 4 people to enter a dungeon." He took a sip of his soda and asked, "Even when the academy has no rules, can you clear 5 or 6 dungeons by yourself?" Kim turned his head and replied exasperatedly, "I could never conquer it alone." Webin chuckled and joked around. "How can you say that after just defeating Mom? Too much modesty isn't a good thing, my friend." Kim thought to himself, speechless. Does he think he's being humble? Webin smiled gently. "He seems to be in good spirits." Webin exclaimed, looking at him, "You seem to be all right now." Hearing that, he replied with a grateful voice, "Thanks to your infirmary, I had a good rest." Webin, looking at the can in his hand, said with relief, "That's good then." The brilliant light of the sunset bathed him. He cheerfully agreed. "I'll accept your offer. There's no reason to refuse. Besides, being with you will give me new experiences." Kim smiled sincerely and replied, "Thank you." Webin asked, "Which dungeon are you planning to go to?" Kim looked out the window. "C-rank dungeon, Buffalo," he answered. "Is that dungeon in Zhonghuan?" he asked further. "Yeah, Webin," he replied, raising his can closer to his mouth. "It's the Jushin dungeon. The most classic dungeon," he thought to himself. The image of a minotaur flashed through his mind. "So that's me, you, and Logi. 3 in total. What kind of person do you want for the last spot? Got anyone in mind?" Webin asked. Kim immediately replied, "I hope it's not Rachel or Leon." Webin chuckled and assured him, "They wouldn't be going anyway." Webin explained, "Rachel's been training at the training center ever since she enrolled in the academy. And Leon is preparing to conquer dungeons with the 2nd and 3rd year students." The 2nd and 3rd years. That's a relief, Kim thought to himself. Webin continued to ponder. He looked up at the sky and said, "I remember someone who'd be perfect. He's probably sleeping right now." Kim asked incredulously, "Sleeping? At this hour?" Webin took one last sip and replied, "Yep, that's just how he is." He tossed the can. It bounced off the rim of the trash can, then the wall. Finally, it landed perfectly in the trash. "Swish," he said. "Let's hit the cafeteria first. Gotta fuel up." Night fell quickly. A peaceful night with a full moon and twinkling stars overhead. The two of them walked toward a large house built in a traditional style. Woven opened the gate. "Pardon the intrusion," he said, stepping inside. Kim thought to himself, his house. The entrance was paved with stone, surrounded by green lawns and intricately designed lampposts. Kim held a bag in his hand. A cool breeze brushed past him as he walked, looking around. "A place like this exists in the academy? I never came here when I played Miracle. Blurred blessing," Kim thought as he walked. "In my past life, even though I was a chef specializing in Japanese cuisine, but I've never been to Japan. I'd really like to go there someday to do some market research." They arrive at an archery range. Jim silently observes the distant targets, riddle with countless arrows. Wepper moves towards a wooden hut, where a figure lies on the floor, then announces, "There he is." He approaches, waking the girl sleeping soundly on the wooden floor. "Wake up." Jim follows him, looking incredulously at the scene before him. Webin crouches down and continues to yell, "Hey, wake up! This isn't working." The girl continues to sleep soundly, ignoring Webin's calls. Out of options, Webin leans in and whispers in her ear, "I bought it." The blue-haired girl jolts awake. She immediately sits up and asks, "Where?" Jim is bewildered by her sudden awakening. He chuckles. Pointing at Jim, he says, "Over there, with the black-haired guy." The girl, just moments ago drowsy, suddenly lunged forward like a fury with lightning speed. Kim froze, completely taken aback by the unexpected attack. The girl targeted the black plastic bag he was holding. In a flash, she snatched the bag from his grasp. Her eyes locked onto him, filled with a menacing glare. Kim, propelled by inertia, fell backward with a resounding thud. Kim crashed hard onto the floor. His head swam, his mind in a whirl of confusion, and the girl was on top of him, In her hand, she held a chocolate bar, taking blissful bites, repeatedly exclaiming, "So good!" Kim's mind slowly cleared, thinking, "What in the world?" The girl called out, "Hey you!" Kim looked down at the blue-haired girl gazing up at him. She looked incredibly beautiful, still holding the half-eaten chocolate bar in her hand. She asked, "Do you still love Kong?" Rewinding to the time before Kim's time travel. It was an ordinary day. In the kitchen, his colleagues are working. Suddenly, a scream echoes from outside, startling them, causing them to stop what they're doing. Jim furrows his brow, eyes wide with excitement as he says, "It's here. It's finally here." Jim remembers how he lived a life knowing nothing but work. His hands tremble as he holds his phone. The phone screen displays a glowing door. It's the miracle, the blessing opening. He thinks of the people around him, from colleagues to characters in the game. He berates himself for failing to confront those smelly men, both in the game and in real life. Finally, it's happening to him. Jim, now in his chef uniform, sits in the bathroom. Phone in hand, he excitedly says, "Damn it, if I pay, will it appear right away?" The reason I'm paying is... An image of a game character appears in Jin's mind. A blue-haired girl with golden eyes. To a hogue on top of her head fill him with anticipation. Avam Valnaban. He taps the phone screen. A female voice rings out from the light. He sees a girl with blue hair tied up in a ponytail. Holding a chocolate bar, she smiles and asks a question. 5 stars are displayed below, indicating an SSR character. Jean stares at the screen, letting out a few chuckles. Jean recalls images from the game Miracle Blessing. There are many beautiful female heroes in it. The story revolves around the male protagonist, Leon. Among them, the character confirmed as the main heroine is Nobel, Valny Belun. Although the other heroines have their own appeal, he remembers a monster hunting event in the game. Back at the temple, Lady Nobel were here. Leon and Nobel wield their swords, carving out pink light. Nobel says, "Sorry, we're a bit late." Kim described the game's storyline. It's a story about Nobel and Leon's journey. On the screen right now is an image of them joining forces, charging into battle. It's incredibly impressive. He exclaimed about them overcoming hardships together, and their love blossomed from there. Even I was captivated by Nobel's character back then, and spent money on this game. Kim watched Leon and Nobel shouting. He was completely amazed by this scene. Suddenly, a notification popped up from the CB website. Kim's eyes widened.
14, 1:07 nachts.
Payment of 149,001 completed for the Blessing of Miracles pet. Kim continued his thought. So, except for the female lead, Avon, the other characters gradually faded into the background. The main character stood in the center. Varcher and the blue-haired girl flanked him on either side. Kim fell silent. Out of all the heroines, the one who fades into obscurity the fastest is my first 5-star. John Jiam's daughter, Saki Ryo, returns to the present. Ryo, holding a chocolate bar, asks, "What about Enjiong?" Kim, "Are you embarrassed?" Before he could answer, she turned away. Hand on her hip, she said, "This guy seems a bit annoying, huh?" The reason Webin insisted on saying that was because Kim recalled Ryo's abilities. Sweating, he thought, "I've used her, so I know very well. Ryo has the highest DPS among all the ADCs. Although she doesn't look like it, she's actually very intelligent." Kim thought about the lore and realized, besides, she doesn't play a major role in the main storyline, so it's highly likely that her political standing would be jeopardized if she attended this party. Perhaps thinking that, Kim Jong comforted herself, "It'll be fine, right?" Ryo walked straight towards Webin. She asked, "What brings you here, Webin?" Webin looked at the candy bar Yang-eun held hesitantly in his hand. That." Ryo snatched the candy bar from him and coldly said, "Speak." Webin probed, "Ryo, that's Gang Junwoo. You know him, right?" Just as the chocolate bar reached her lips, Ryo stared intently at the chocolate she'd just bitten into. "Oh," she responded indifferently. Webin explained, "He came to see me earlier this afternoon." She immediately asked, "And?" Webin continued, "But then, he had some goons roughing him up?" Ryo coldly interrupted, "Get to the point." Hearing that, Webin didn't beat around the bush any longer. "We're looking for members to conquer Mokchow. We'll be leaving next week." Kim inwardly exclaimed, "He's surprisingly straightforward, true to his nickname." Weber added, except for the buffalo horns. All the rewards will be divided equally among the members. Rio, upon hearing this, silently looked at Kim. Then, she walked towards him, pointed at his chest, and seriously asked, "You were the one back then, right? Back in the beginner's space?" Kim calmly replied, "Yeah." Rio stared intently at him, making Kim feel a bit uneasy. Rio turned around and walked step by step towards Weber, saying, "The dungeon rewards will benefit our scores, so there's no reason to refuse. But you're not as brave as I thought." Kim thought to himself, "I never thought I'd hear this from someone who sleeps so much." Rio grabbed his jacket and said, "I'm sorry, but I don't want to work with someone who has no guts." She put on her jacket. Waffen, overhearing, quickly spoke up. "Saki, you saw him fight, didn't you? Besides, Gangzuma isn't exactly normal," she replied. "His opponent must have been weak." Waffen retorted, "Are you crazy? That guy was from auditor and the midterm exam." Realizing he'd said too much, Waffen quickly covered his mouth. Rio looked at him, his face serious. He remained silent, observing their conversation. The two continued to argue. Waffen exclaimed, "It's so annoying that you can hear me. Just listen to me." Rio wasn't one to back down. She retorted, "Am I your dog? Why should I listen?" He angrily muttered, "You little." Looking at Ingang is enough to make my mouth water. As if struck by a blow, Rio loudly exclaimed, "If you don't know anything about Ingyang, then don't speak." Webin immediately retorted, "Fine, then I'll buy it for you." Kim, speechless, looked at the two of them as if they were children. What should we do? Kim thought wanting a team member and finding that person are two different things. He recalled Rio's sweet in-game persona and fell into deep thought. There's no need to persuade someone with such a poor attitude. He turned to leave, then said to Webin, "Let's go. That's enough, stop it. No need to convince someone who doesn't want to cooperate. Let's find someone better." His decision startled Webin. Rio, regaining his composure, said coldly, "So you weren't that serious about conquering the dungeon after all." They stared at each other in silence. Kim calmly opened his jacket and pulled out a knife. Webin and Ryoso's eyes shot open in surprise. Perhaps they thought he would attack. Kim held a knife in his hand. The blade gleamed under the moonlight, almost blinding. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he threw the knife. To the astonishment of both of them, the knife flew straight, hitting the bullseye of the target. Rio's eyes widened in disbelief. Before she could recover, another knife flew right past her face. Rio's eyes followed the knife's trajectory. It once again powerfully struck the bullseye. Rio fell to her knees. Kim's face remained calm, almost serene. Looking down at her, he asked, "Satisfied?" Rio's face paled. Her body trembled as she stammered, "No." The next morning, a door opened in an office. Rio sat inside with her laptop. She pushed up her glasses and offered a gentle greeting. Kim, Webin, and Lewis entered. Webin asked in surprise, "You're here early?" Lewis politely said, "Hello." Kim sat across from Ryoso, their eyes meeting. She raised her hand, shyly smiling at him in greeting. Kim smiled back, "Oh, hello." But inwardly, she thought, that sashimi did the trick. Webin peered at Rio's computer with admiration. "You're finished already?" She replied, "This is nothing, just a few clicks." She continued typing. "The permit's almost ready." The brightly lit room had large windows and curtains. Webin held a brush pen, cleared his throat and said, "Let's begin." On the board was a drawing of a buffalo with a round belly and stick-like legs and arms. Webin began his presentation, Buffalo Dangian. As the name suggests, it's the habitat of the C-rank monster, the buffalo. Trang solemnly pointed at the board. They're also called brutes. Since they charge from a distance, close-range combat can be tricky. Glowy, looking at the image on the board, exclaims, "Truly impressive." Kim sighs, "Is that so?" Webin continues his presentation, but they have a critical weakness, a fatal one. Vulnerability to long-range attacks. Rio nods in agreement. Webin raises his pen. However, there's a crucial point to remember. Something you must never do. Never open the stone gate in the center. Absolutely not. The stone gate he's referring to is sealed shut with numerous chains. Lewis asks, "What happens if it's open?" Webin strokes his chin thoughtfully. It's sealed for a reason, as the rumors say. That's what I've heard, but I don't know the truth. Rio reasons, the academy forbids opening it. There's no reason to do something that's prohibited, right? Kim clasped his hands together and said with a smile, exactly. It absolutely must not be opened. Everyone stared in disbelief. Kim felt strange at his definitive tone. He could feel everyone's eyes on him. A wave of anxiety washed over Kim. Webben was the first to ask, what do you mean, Kong Jin-woo? Do you know what's behind that gate? Kim quickly explained, no, but in his mind he thought, well, of course, it's because I don't want to break any rules, but you know there's a hidden boss back there. Hearing that, Webben stopped questioning him. He wondered to himself. Knowing he had escaped disaster, Kim secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He pondered, from the very beginning, the stone gate can only be opened if certain conditions are met. Right now, it can't be opened because it's blocked, except for the risk factor, of course. Then no dungeon is easier than the Pearl Dungeon. Seeing Kim staring at him, Rio held up the hanging bar in his hand. Chewing with his mouth full, he asked, what's wrong, Kim? Startled, Kim quickly made up an excuse. It's just that you look like you're enjoying your food so much. Rio replied casually, using your brain takes a lot of energy, gotta replenish the sugar. Kim thought to himself, exasperated, I can't tell him anything. A gloomy and frustrated aura began to emanate from him. Suddenly, Kim shivered. He cautiously glanced around, as if searching for something. Chloe sensed it too. She held a paper knife, with a murderous look on her face. Kim thought, I'm being watched. Outside in the hallway, students were eating, drinking, chatting, and reading. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Lost in thought, Kim turned to look at Chloe. Seeing this, she quickly put away the knife. The fierce expression remained on her face, but her voice was gentle as she asked, what's wrong? What are you up to, Yamaha? Kim silently contemplated, I need to wait. His eyes, sharp as blades, held a calculating glint. When the time comes, it will reveal itself. The bus arrived at Triagon. Sitting on the bus, Kim realized it was Triagon. He thought to himself, after leaving Gate 5, I promised myself I wouldn't return to this place. I never thought I'd come back like this. The bus suddenly braked. A voice echoed from outside. Where's this bus from? Ah, from Ja Queen Academy. He looked towards the sound. Security. Outside, they were moving the barricades to clear the way for the bus. Kim observed and thought, restricted to civilians. Because this is the border zone of the Moon's dungeon. Security is very tight. He recalled the past and realized, the Council of Elders is watching us. Suddenly, Subit Wybian walks over to Kim, holding an egg and offers it. Hey, Gangjima, want an egg? Kim stares blankly at him. He continues, or how about some soup? Kim quickly declines, I'm fine. He thinks to himself, is it okay to eat this stuff? Subit Wybian checks on him. Are you worried about going into the dungeon? You look so glum. Kim forces a smile. Is that so? Subit Wybian turns to someone else. Saki, want an egg? Saki glances indifferently out the window. No. He persists. It's really good. Then she glances briefly at Kim. Subit Wybian excitedly talks to Kim. Are you planning on doing anything impressive this time? He replies, no. Seemingly sensing something, Kim glances at Saki. Suddenly caught off guard, Saki quickly averts her gaze. Kim feels uneasy, like he's being watched. Why does she keep staring at me? The car arrived and Louis hurriedly jumped out. She exclaimed excitedly, we're here. The weather's perfect, isn't it? Kim looked around, silently assessing the area. I heard magical beasts have nested here since ancient times. Now, this place has become a simple agricultural dungeon. Spit Wyben looked at him curiously. Why are you carrying so much luggage? He asked. Are you curious? Kim replied. He then pulled open his bag, revealing dozens of small knives inside. Spit Wyben was speechless. Are you planning to sell knives here? Kim replied. Preparedness averts peril. Spit Wyben teased, talking like an old man. But if you brought them, you must have a reason. Louis called out from ahead. I'll lead the way. Kim politely replied, thank you. Then the group set off. She led the group to an area beneath a cliff face, which was being guarded. The guards at the gate didn't look very friendly. The atmosphere immediately grew tense. One of them stepped forward and asked, you're from the Ja Queen Academy, right? Please sign your names in the registry over there. Kim stepped forward to register. A look of surprise flickered across the gatekeeper's face. Kim caught the reaction in his eyes. Speed Weapon, walking ahead, asked, Kang Yohan, what's taking so long? Hurry up. The team entered. A strange smell immediately assaulted their noses, causing Speed Weapon to exclaim. He reminded everyone to watch their step. Trailing behind, Kim realized something and thought, my eyes are playing tricks on me. The guard outside closed the gate. He reassured himself, it'll be fine. The team ventured deeper inside. Kim looked around. The stone walls were covered in graffiti left by previous visitors. Seriously, a dungeon? Are they here for sightseeing? Those nobles, honestly, came a voice from behind. Saki suddenly grabbed his arm, panting, I'm so tired. Kim looked at her, then back at him. You don't seem hurt. Saki quickly explained. I thought if there was something sweet, well, never mind, while he rummaged for candy. Saki, behind him, smiled smugly, as if she had achieved her goal. He unwrapped a piece and offered it to her. Saki looked at it blankly and asked, Candy is fine, but don't you have any yang gang? Kim, hearing this, exclaimed, Why are you asking me? Don't you have some? Saki chuckled nervously, I'm saving mine for later. Then she popped the candy into her mouth. Kim, exasperated, focused on the game. Suddenly, Glowy announced, Defensive Formation 304. They're 200 meters out. Speed Weapon added, Is that clear? Stick to the plan. That way we'll avoid danger. He continued, addressing Glowy and Saki. I'll buff you guys, so don't worry. I'm counting on you. After retrieving the red bow, she casually replied, Okay. Jim looked it over appraisingly. This is a force chain white bow, isn't it? If so, clearing the dungeon shouldn't be a problem. Saki grumbled, That took long enough. Jim was still hesitant. Can we really trust him? Suddenly, Saki exclaimed, Wait! She then pulled out a candy bar and ate it with a satisfied expression. Okay, we're good. Jim was skeptical. Are you sure about this? A murderous aura emanated from the distance. The team prepared for battle. Chloe and Saki charged forward at full speed, Speedweapon close behind. He whistled with all his might, trying to catch up to them. 3 bull-headed monsters emerged from the cave. They charged aggressively towards the group. Lewis stepped forward, ready to engage. She leaped into the air and fired towards the monster. It roared in pain as it was struck. With a single blow, one of them collapsed backwards. Another continued its ferocious charge. Lewis landed gracefully, clicking her tongue. Then she charged forward again. I'll slow down a bit. Seeing this, Speedweb1 yelled, Lewis, stick to the plan. Suddenly Saki spoke up. Pay attention. With that said, she appeared before Lewis, bow drawn and arrow aimed. With a powerful swing, she released 3 arrows that shot out like rockets. 3 monsters were just about to pounce on Lewis. Before she could react, they were hit and obliterated. Saki lowered her bow. She licked her lips with a playful grin. Oops, acted first, apologies later. She then enjoyed her candy, unable to contain her delight. So good. Seeing this, Kim thought, what if I accidentally broke its horn? He also silently praised Saki. But she's a true ADC. No one can stop a pro ADC. Amazing. As he walked, he discreetly observed Saki. The materials are being enhanced. Closey, walking beside him, asked, what do you think? Suddenly, a monster with an injured eye sprang to its feet and charged towards Saki. She glanced at it indifferently, thinking, I thought it was down for the count. Saki muttered in annoyance, how irritating. It lunged at her with such speed that she couldn't even react in surprise, nor could she dodge in time. She could only manage to raise her arms to shield her face. When Saki opened her eyes, Kim was there, shielding her, and with a single swing of his arm, he sliced the monster in half. In Saki's vision, all she saw was Kim standing protectively before her, leaving her staring at him in astonishment. He turned to Saki and asked, Are you alright? She looked at him and smiled brightly. A rumble outside the cave. A phone rings. The guard picks up the phone. His face is unfriendly. He answers, Yes, assistant professor. Kim approaches the monster's carcass and picks up a horn. He holds it up, a grin spreading across his face. This is it. My reason for coming to this dungeon. Ogre horn, a C-rank reinforcement material. It's pretty common, but it has a lot of uses. Besides strengthening weapons, I need to grab as many as I can. Saki calls out from behind him. She offers him the candy bar from earlier. Thanks, here's a little something for you. Kim turns to look at Saki, lost in thought. Suddenly, he feels a murderous presence behind him. He breaks out in a cold sweat. He turns around. It's Chloe, the hamster girl. Oh, hey, he whispers to Chloe, the clerk from before. Chloe quickly replies, oh, I see, got it. Speedwagon, standing in the distance, curiously asks, are you two on a date? You've been. Louis, overhearing, couldn't contain his happy expression. A date? A date with Yoma? Kim turned back and said, if you keep looking at relationships between men and women that way, you're being prejudiced. Speedwagon quickly replied, oh really, it's just that she's always by your side. Kim was speechless, not knowing what to say. Louis continued, but initially, the amount of resources wasn't like this, right? The whole team looked towards the inside of the cave. Speedwagon responded, that's right, no matter how common dungeon pearls are, resources shouldn't be this depleted. Saki, what do you think? She paused in thought. I'm thinking too. But wasn't that bull from earlier a bit strange? Speed asked back, what do you mean, where? Saki started analyzing, I'm not entirely sure, but it seems like it's running away from something. Considering the behavior of buffalo, they only run when there's an emergency. Speed agreed with her. That's right, water buffalo are generally docile in Chaiwan. They even use them for plowing fields. Kim was speechless. Use them for plowing? Seriously? What kind of people are they? Kim also analyzed, there's more to this than meets the eye, but there's nothing we can do, right? Well, the radio waves are transmitting here just fine. So how did you two meet anyway? He continued to ask. Saki replied proudly, I was top of the class in the Weipin written exam. After hearing that, he completely lost his temper. Weipin retorted, hey, what's that supposed to mean? She boasted cheerfully. Not to mention, I earned 3 recommendations in the entrance exam. Kim asked in surprise, top of the written exam? How? I thought you needed connections to get that kind of placement. You don't really seem the type. Webin retorted, connections, you say? Ajity is a relative of mine, though a distant one. You're thinking about family connections? That's why, as players, we don't know the relationships between Webin and the main characters. Webin continued. My family is a branch of the Jete family, meaning, my family is a collateral branch of the Jang Sol family. That family. He paused, then said, never mind, it doesn't matter anyway. Webin clapped a hand on his shoulder roughly and said, don't look so glum, man. I'm satisfied with my current position. But, Doma is more amazing than I thought. Don't forget about me when you're famous, okay? He replied softly, don't worry, that won't happen. Webin confidently declared. Who knows, maybe someday you'll become a 7-star hero. Louis quickly added, yeah, if it's you, Yamaha, you could totally do it. Suddenly, Saki, bow in hand, walked briskly ahead. Kim watched her. The whole team looked at Saki in confusion. She paused thoughtfully and said, I. She turned back to them and continued, don't like 7-star heroes. Everyone stared at Saki, dumbfounded. Webin muttered, what? Why? Then he continued, let's go. We'll figure it out after clearing the dungeon. We just need to catch about 20 of them, right? Kim, beside him, suddenly noticed something. Scratch marks appeared on the cliff face. Kim focused his gaze. Webin urged him, what is it? Come on, let's go. We're exposed out here. The guard continued to answer the phone. The person on the other end asked, did you prepare everything like I said? The unnamed guard cautiously replied, yes, of course, ma'am. They're probably just fighting some raging bulls, driven mad by the magic stones. You don't need to worry, ma'am. Well, if that's what they're saying, then I guess so. But I'm not entirely convinced. Is there anything else you can do? The guard responded. Yes, I've done as you instructed. But I think they'll be able to handle those crazy bulls. The woman on the other end chuckled. Oh really? Then why didn't you sound so confident before? If they fail, will you take responsibility? The guard was speechless. Just do your best, she said, her voice softening slightly. Call me back when you have an update. Good work. The guard stammered, yes, I understand. He sighed. I'm so dead. The door now radiated a chilling aura of menace. He thought to himself, even the door must be opened to eliminate any chance of their survival, reducing it to practically zero. He sensed something from the boy as well. But those eyes, they seemed to see right through everything. After a moment of hesitation, the guard decided to enter. I have to confirm. Inside the cave, Lewis called out to him. She said, I sense monsters approaching us. From behind, Jim added, how many? She paused, concentrating. My blessing shows. Loe's expression turned grave. Around 50. The team stared in disbelief. A thunderous stampede echoed from within the cave. The team exchanged panicked glances. Suddenly, a horde of raging bulls charged towards them. Too many to count. Webbins said in a bewildered tone, what's going on? Aren't there too many of them? Are they really just buffalo? These aren't ordinary buffalo. They're incredibly aggressive. Their eyes are bloodshot. The whole herd is charging fiercely towards our group. Webbin exclaimed in terror. I said they were docile magical beasts before. Jim exclaimed in surprise. Water buffalo are stampeding towards us. Sashimi? He remembered the saying, every blade has its own purpose. He had a flashback to his previous life. When the head chef told him, a knife used to butcher a cow cannot be used to kill a chicken, and a sashimi knife is only for slicing fish. Understand? The chef asked. So what about this? What about using beef for sashimi? The chef suddenly raised his knife. He frantically shielded himself, repeatedly saying,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
When he opened his eyes in astonishment, he found his master. The knife sliced through the fish perfectly. He chuckled, it's all right, you can say that. Suddenly, Kim realized something. Why am I suddenly remembering my past life? I think you can butcher a cow with a sashimi knife too. Kim ordered, Chloe, distract those buffalo. Instead of a direct attack, attack from the sides. Their trajectory will be thrown off. No need to attack, just get their attention. Lewis listened intently, obeying him. He continued, Webbin, you know what to do, right? Webbin grinned, yeah, I got it. Saki looked at him skeptically, wondering, why is he so calm? 50 water beads. Suddenly, Kim called out, Saki, block those buffalo trying to get close. She quickly agreed. Saki asked Webbin in bewilderment, what's with him? He's strangely calm. He warned her not to be surprised. Kim thought to himself, beads? Sashimi? Don't overthink it. That's why I prepared it. You hold the knife in your hand. Cutting evenly is a manifestation of the sword god's blessing. The ferocious bull charges towards you. Jean doesn't hesitate to advance and attack. Saki stares at you in bewilderment. The half-eaten chocolate bar falls to the ground. Sakiozo is also stunned by Jin's choice. He's gone. In the distance, Jean holds the knife in his hand, treading on the pile of bull carcasses amidst the eerie crimson rocks. His eyes are filled with cold ruthlessness. The sharp knife gleams. Sakiozo's eyes widen in astonishment. She thinks to herself at that moment, oh no, that moment didn't stop there. Chloe also charges in with a sword in her hand, like a gust of wind. She seems to split into 3 different illusions, then reaches for the hilt of her sword. In their eyes, a ruthless determination gleamed. The mad bulls charged, a frenzied stampede of rage. Each bull's eyes glowed crimson, like fiery rubies. Lewis utilized the blessing of the cat goddess. Her subject from behind unleashed their power. Illusions flickered into existence, soaring forward. Sword in hand, they targeted the charging bulls. Chloe's small figure stood amidst the massive beasts. She landed gracefully on the ground. The illusions merged, converging into a single brilliant light, a vibrant, rosy hue. From Lewis's power, it illuminated everything. The illusions vanished. Only Chloe remained, kneeling on the ground, sheathing her sword. Behind her, the bulls exploded into nothingness. The ground reflected the rapidly approaching figure of Kim. He launched himself into the air with a powerful leap. In his hand, he wielded his familiar sashimi knife. He charged towards the oncoming stampede of buffalo. Jiam swiftly weaved through the herd, each strike precise and deadly. His blade flashed too fast to see, slicing through them with incredible speed. He cut down one buffalo, then leaped to another, taking it down with a powerful blow. He darted back and forth through the chaos of the herd, with incredible agility and fluidity. Crimson blood sprayed into the air, painting the sky a gruesome red. Gang Jiam charged forward. A frenzied buffalo bellowed and thrashed wildly, sending rocks and debris flying. He raised his blades in a crossblock, shielding himself from the onslaught of shattered stone. Sakiozo and Speed Webbin watched from behind, stunned by the unfolding carnage. A wave of massive buffalo charged towards Jiam, one after another, in a maddened rush, leaping and piling on top of each other, to trap him in the center. Finally, A wave of buffaloes piled on top of each other like a giant sphere, crushing Jean beneath their weight. Sakirio raised her bow, aiming to shoot and rescue him, but even she was terrified by the overwhelming stampede. Suddenly, her eyes widened in shock. The buffalo that had just moments before crushed Jean were sent flying in all directions by his sheer strength. And there he stood, Jean, unwavering and upright, two blades gleaming in his hands. Jean was completely unharmed. His face was cold as he surveyed the scene. Amidst the scattering buffalo, Sakiozo stared in disbelief, her bow slack in her hand. Her jaw dropped as she exclaimed, "Oh my God!" Each massive buffalo crashed to the crimson earth. Around Jean, who stood tall and formidable, Sakiozo gazed in awe at his powerful back, not knowing what to say. Finally done. Kim relaxed and gave a gentle smile. Inside his large bag were now plenty of valuable, glossy buffalo horns. Kim placed the last horn inside and said with satisfaction, "This is enough." He was very happy. All thanks to the power of the item. Thanks to the 40 seconds of blessing, catching 50 buffaloes went so smoothly. Louis ran to Kim's side, excitedly praising his friend Roma. "You were so cool today." He was slightly startled, looking at her and thinking to himself, it was also thanks to the help of everyone else. Kim gently patted Louis's head, praising him. "You did a great job too. Thanks to you, I was able to defeat them more easily." Receiving his praise made her beam. "Thanks a bunch." Sakio and Speedwagon watch from afar, bewildered. The two are chattering and clinging to each other. Kim is asking Louis something, "Is that so?" And she's being incredibly obedient. "Yes." Sakio is stunned. She stares blankly at the strange scene unfolding before her eyes. Speedwagon teases Sakio with a playful laugh, startling her. "I told you not to be so surprised." She snaps back, irritated. "How can I not be surprised by this? This idiot." Despite being scolded, he laughs heartily and says, "I was just as shocked the first time I saw it. Now I'm used to it. Every time I see that Yoma guy, all my common sense goes right out the window." Sakio furrows her brow, muttering to herself, "Kong Juma, just who is he?" Speedwagon sighs and replies, "I don't know either." They both just stood in silence, watching. Kim and Louis stood side by side, atop the slain minotaurs. And then he laughed, teasing the living legend, something like that. Sakiozo reacted immediately, glancing over. Speedwagon spoke up, calling to Kim, who was standing with her, away from Yuma. "Saki Ryo, what was that about?" he wondered cluelessly. The four of them continued deeper, into the dungeon. Speedwagon politely addressed Kim. "The condition for escaping this dungeon is to defeat 20 minotaurs. You caught more than double that. How embarrassing. You practically wiped them out yourself. You're so nonchalant about it, too. It's no big deal. I couldn't help you guys at all during the midterm." He chuckled. "Remember when you single-handedly defeated," but suddenly remembered Sakio was there. So Speedwagon paused, looked at her and changed the subject. "It's nothing. Thanks anyway." Sakio looked confused, not understanding anything. The four of them continued deeper into the dungeon. He started up a conversation, referring to Jinwoo's earlier actions. "Honestly, he almost died clearing out that dungeon. Isn't that just like the Lion King? You got the gist of it?" Sakio asked curiously. The Lion King? Was he being chased by someone too? But the main character of the story was still focused, facing the glow. She looked at the goblin corpses around and hesitantly called out to him, "Jinwoo," but here, Sakio also sensed it like Juhi and quickly added, "That's right. Feels like something's here." Jinwoo, with a serious expression, looked at something ahead. She finally saw it. His face paled in terror as he let out a moan. He went from seriously injured to cautiously alert. His eyes widened, staring intently. The thing was right in front of them. It was a massive iron door, bound by thick purple chains. An eerie and dangerous aura emanated from the door, causing all four of them to look up in fear. Louis stood beside them, dumbfounded. Jim frowned thoughtfully at the door. She unconsciously muttered, "The door!" He stared wide-eyed at the chained door. Jim had a hunch that this was back where the horde of beasts had just died. A figure wearing a hat suddenly appeared, staring intently at the chaotic mess of flesh and blood below. He saw countless enormous beast corpses strewn about, piled on top of each other. The sight filled him with horror. It was the dungeon gatekeeper. He broke out in a cold sweat. as he saw the corpses of the Jawu appearing before his eyes. So many caught? Damn those deadbeats, he raged. Jawu worldlings 2,000,000,001 dead. Not long ago, a woman, claiming to be an instructor from the prestigious GA Queen Academy, had stopped by. The dungeon gatekeeper had encountered this woman. He felt a sense of unease around her. And the woman he met was none other than assistant instructor Kim. She offered a tempting deal. If you help me with this, I'll pay you 2,000,000,001. The dungeon gatekeeper couldn't fathom her intentions. Why? Assistant instructor Kim pulled out a brilliantly purple mana stone. She ordered him, tame the Jawu, then drive them mad with this magic stone. Furthermore, she paused, then continued. She paused, then continued. A cunning and wicked expression spread across her face as Cadet Kang Yoma entered. Release them all. That's not all. Assistant instructor Kim's main plan is the stone gate. Simultaneously open the stone gate in the deepest part. The dungeon gatekeeper looked bewildered, staring at her hand offering the magic stone. He stammered, "You mean send those cadets to their deaths?" Seeing his hesitation, she switched to a tempting tactic. "Should I offer this deal to someone else then?" Of course he wouldn't want that. Who would want to participate in a gamble where they're not sure of winning? Then assistant instructor Kim pretended to leave. "I suppose I'll have to find someone else." The dungeon gatekeeper panicked, grabbing assistant instructor Kim's hand holding the magic stone. "No!" he yelled. He accepted the mana stone and let out a sinister laugh. His mouth repeatedly muttered, I'll do it, I'll do it." Seeing that she had successfully lured him, assistant Kim smiled knowingly at Hyung. "Quite nimble for a big guy," she instructed him. "I'll provide you with information via phone. So, answer any unknown calls, understand?" The dungeon gatekeeper, as if mesmerized by the eerie purple mana stone, stared fixedly at it and replied, "Yes." Assistant Kim coldly stated, "All right then, I'll be going." The dungeon gatekeeper could only silently watch her leave. He was delirious thinking about the 2,000,000,000 in the deal. 2,000,000,000. He grinned with satisfaction at the amount. "I could try again." Back to the present, he casually walked through the mountain of corpses, venturing deeper into the dungeon, muttering to himself, "My 2,000,000,000. Right, they're nothing more than cannon fodder. If that stone door opens, they'll all be slaughtered." On the other side of the door, Kim and Lewis are still in shock. How can that door be here? The four stand together, cautiously observing the area around the mysterious stone door. He frowns, wary, his mind racing with possibilities. Somehow, everything has gone surprisingly smoothly so far. Kim recalls the suspicious look in the gatekeeper's eyes. Back in the dungeon, that suspicious look bothered me. And just as he suspected, he realizes a magic stone is needed to open the strange door. The stone gate can only be opened with a giant magic stone, the one dropped by the final boss of the giant dungeon. The reward for completing the game. Those previous pieces were fragments of Gigan's magic stone. I didn't think collecting them would open this door. Kim guesses if it's like the game, then he learned what the reward inside the treasure chest was. The reward here is... But that reward wasn't enough to entice Jean. But now wasn't the time to crave rewards. The enormous gate, grotesque and bound by massive chains. He thought to himself, it seems Jean is racking his brain to figure out this situation. The red lines etched onto the stone door don't seem like they were made by an ordinary sword mountain. That was because he widened his eyes in worry. He needed to quickly think of a method. I've already used up 40 seconds of the painless blessing. But if it were the Muramasa, I could hold out a little longer. He thought of the Muramasa and frowned. I have to get through that door and escape before that thing wakes up. Suddenly, there was unexpected movement from the door. Countless streams of energy and overwhelming power surged out. The entire dungeon trembled under the surge of power, freezing the four in their tracks, too wary to move. They didn't dare breathe. Lewis, fear gripping him, instinctively asked his friend Juma, "What is that?" Even Speedwebbin's jaw dropped in stunned silence. What is that thing?" From within the doorway emerged a monstrous creature, as large as a building. It slammed its colossal axe into the ground, sending tremors throughout the entire dungeon. The monster's enormous shadow engulfed Kim and his entire group. Speedwebbin stammered, unable to form coherent words. What in the... He glared up at the colossal beast, fury building inside him. Damn it, he raged inwardly. This is insane. As for the reward Kim knew about, It was the blessing of transference. Could be unleashed by transferring one of the owner's blessings to a specific target. The blessing of transference. And a hulking water buffalo with a gruesome face is relentlessly swinging its axe, creating tremors in front of Jean. It's an A-rank magical beast, also known as a minotaur. A strong gust of wind blows in from outside, making the stone cave grow colder. The magical beasts that resemble buffalo warily observe their surroundings. The flickering flames make them even more terrifying. Now, all three monsters stand opposite Jin's group. Closest are the two left and right Jwaching monsters. The left and right Jwaching, with their glowing red eyes, step forward. Lewis asks in astonishment, "What kind of magical beasts are in this stone gate?" Jin's eyes follow both of them. He observes and analyzes. "Even if I cut off the gate and go outside, when that guy wakes up, it will be difficult for everyone to escape unharmed." A serious expression appears on his face. However, it's different from the midterm exam. Kim recalled his previous analysis, realizing he had no information about Momed. But while playing the game, he had caught a Monado. If everything goes smoothly, handling all three won't be a problem. But he had already used up 40 seconds of the painless blessing. He told himself to act cautiously. Then slowly he pulled out a knife. Kim turned and asked, "Webin, can I borrow your pain reduction blessing?" He responded absent-mindedly, yeah, sure." Kim continued, "How many seconds can you hold it for?" Webin replied, "Up to 2 minutes." Kim immediately answered, "That's enough. Don't stop while I'm fighting him." He continued cautiously, "If you get distracted even for a second, I'll..." Webin looked at him and said, "I know Kong Jinwoo, you already told me." Kim turned back to remind everyone. "Lewis and Saki, just stay back and cover me." He continued, "That guy's dangerous, so don't rush in." Saki, realizing the hidden meaning in his words, stared at him in shock. Kim continued his instructions, "Just do as we practiced." The ferocious beast roared, its mouth full of sharp fangs. He raised his blade, ready to receive the sword god's blessing. A powerful surge of energy coursed through his every cell. It was almost too much for Kim's body. He couldn't help but cough up a mouthful of blood. Kim gripped his blade tighter, muttering to himself, "I can move." He thought of Webin also fighting with all his might. Thanks to Webin's blessing, Kim knew he had to act. "I can do this." The largest monster, seemingly the leader, was charging towards him relentlessly. Kim pushed through the pain and advanced. "God, please grant me your blessing. These flickering flames can't warm this cave." The monster is charging, fast as the wind. It swings its axe with brutal force towards Jean. Luckily, he dodges just in time. But his internal wounds still ache relentlessly. The pain is enough to make him cough up blood. The tireless monster swings its massive axe again. This time, Jean manages to counterattack. He then quickly moves behind the monster, but it kicks him squarely in the chest. Jean is badly hurt. Bright red blood stains the dusty ground. He regains his footing, landing hard. His senses seem to awaken, sharpened by the blessing. No pain. Jean cautiously watches the oversized weapon preparing to strike. Once more, as the axe swings down, he swiftly moves. The monster, enraged by the missed blows, goes berserk. He quickly changed direction, pursuing him relentlessly. But he was already a step ahead. However, even a slight delay brought the sharp axe blade within a hair's breadth. Shielded by a god's blessing, he evaded with astonishing speed. Simultaneously, he felt a sense of liberation. The disoriented beast slammed into the stone wall. Thrice now it had been scorned by its prey, enraging it further with each failed attempt. Though Jean escaped, his body felt increasingly heavy. Yet, in stark contrast, the monster seemed tireless. Its attacks growing more ferocious with each passing moment. Its strikes becoming more intimidating and powerful. The relentless assault turned the cave into a chaotic mess. Dust and debris filled the air. The monster slowly emerged from the smoke. Towering and imposing, it glared at the person before it, unfazed, with a ferocious and menacing expression. Jean was the source of that rage. No matter how aggressive it was, he gripped the sashimi knife tightly, ready to fight. Saki, witnessing the scene, was stunned. "That's insane. Is that the speed of a human?" Beside her, the Jwajong monster was also attacking. She nimbly lifted herself to dodge. Saki jumped back, then analyzed Jin's recent battle. His muscles, his stance, his movements, his use of energy. He disrupted his opponent's center of gravity. With the smallest of shifts, Saki drew her bow and arrow, thinking as she aimed, "This is just theory. Reality is often very different." Her arrow struck the Zhuozhang directly in one eye. It lunged ferociously at Saki. She focused on the fight, but also continued to think. He wasn't fazed, even on the verge of death. That look, just like Saki prepared to launch another arrow, coldly shouting, "Don't underestimate me." A straight, powerful arrow left the bow. The left and right guards were taken down in an instant. She continued to think. Chris, the zombie. There's a rumor that the zombie used his ultimate technique on a gifted student. She suddenly exclaimed, "No way!" towards Jim. That monster seemed to have seen something in his bloodshot eyes. In its eyes was the image of him, still in the same position. The monster sensed a terrifying power emanating from Jim. It seemed to want to finish him off with one blow. It lunged forward, throwing a straight punch at him. But Jean wasn't about to let it have its way. He effortlessly got to his feet and swiftly delivered a fatal blow. Then he casually turned around, casting a disdainful glance at the monster. Jin's previous unpredictable move had resulted in the monster losing an arm. The monster roared in excruciating pain. Meanwhile, Chloe was battling the Zhuoyuzhang monster, while Webin was struggling to endure. In order to use the blessing, Webin's body was nearing its limit. Chloe's sword pierced deep into the Zhuoyuzhang's body. Moments later, the monster lay sprawled on the ground, his body covered in blood. She had finally defeated it. Chloe wiped the blood from her face and thought, too inexperienced to deal with these magical beasts. She analyzed. The more human-like the magical beast, the greater its power. The level depends on each creature's ability. But generally, if magical beasts act like humans, then, Lewis pondered, then glanced at Jean, who was not far away. Your drama, the strongest monster you're dealing with, not only isn't stopping, but is becoming even more ferocious. It grabbed the axe and channeled its power into it. Immediately after, countless purple lights rushed forward and were absorbed by the axe. Everyone stared in astonishment. Saki exclaimed, "Magic? Is that magic?"
Impossible.
How can a magical beast use magic? The use of magic caused the tendons on the monster's arm to bulge. Saki, I'll let you see them. Trading your life to unleash magic power? Subject: magical beast. The intense shockwave forced everyone to struggle to stay on their feet. The explosive magic power makes it difficult to approach them. Saki trembled, clutching her bow tightly. Even in a situation like this, Webin, on the verge of collapse, silently called out for Kongyam. His eyes were blurred with exhaustion, but he still chose to trust Jim. "I trust you, because that monster is willing to sacrifice its life to use magic. The power emanating from the axe is immense." The entire cave was bathed in a blood-red light. Jim, being the closest, bore the brunt of the pressure. He coughed up blood, staring in disbelief. Ignoring the others who hadn't yet recovered, the monster swung its axe with brutal force towards Jim.